Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where a wild Karen is trying to take over OP's game of Dungeons & Dragons. Mom of one of my players almost gets him kicked out of my game, plus update. I like Dungeons & Dragons and I run 2 games. One I run at a local game shop. It's family friendly and I welcome anyone who can behave and take a shower. The second game is run at my house, with me and my 4 oldest friends. We drink and mess around in the campaign. It's a campaign we've been running since 5e first came out, and it's built around our terrible humor. Definitely not public play space friendly. A new player is a nice 9-year-old named Simon. He loves playing in my public game and found out I run another game. He asked if he could join, and I told him it wasn't really open to new players. He was cool about it. Simon is a good kid. Simon's mom found out later when she picked him up and tried to force him into my other game. I had to get the owner to help calm her down and get her to leave. Simon was in tears apologizing. I felt so bad for him. The owner told the mom that if she ever set foot in his store again, he'd ban her and Simon and would involve the police if necessary. She left in a hurry and almost T-boned a car in her rush to leave. Simon's dad drops him off now. He came to me and the owner, begging for forgiveness. Turns out, the mom wanted Simon in my game as a form of babysitting so she could go out and party with her other terrible mom friends. We told him that as long as it's him dropping Simon off, there won't be any more issues. He's a good kid, and I'd hate to lose our monk. Update. Mostly good news and should put some minds at ease. I ran into Simon's dad and his sister Anna at the store, and they invited me out to lunch. Simon's doing pretty well, all things considered. Dad says he and mom were already most of the way through the divorce process, but he and his almost ex-wife agreed to keep it quiet until they finalized some agreements. Mom basically admitted she didn't want Simon very often. She negotiated for some money in exchange for giving full custody to Dad with a few holiday visitations, if she can make it. She's moving a few states away to live with some of her friends from college. He doubts they'll see her more often than once a year, if that. He said it went as well as he could have hoped. He's just glad it's almost over. Auntie Anna, as Simon calls her, is Dad's sister. She's stepping in to help with Simon while Dad juggles everything. She brought him to the shop this weekend and hung out with me while I ran the game so she could learn. Everyone had a good time and even got a few giggles from Anna, so I'll consider that a GM job well done for first impressions of the hobby. It's a shame that for our first game, she had to see me as Marty the Farty Lizard Folk Merchant, an NPC they ran into last session. Lots of hissing and farting noises from me for 15 minutes. The game went well. Anna and I talked while Simon looked at all the dice sets for an hour after the game. She's been pulled into a parent group of kids in Simon's class. I guess Simon has all the other kids wanting to try playing. Since my private game is on hiatus for at least 6 months, I offered to run one if the parents were comfortable with it. I ended up getting added to the group chat, and Anna's house is where we're gaming. The next day, Anna and I met up for lunch, and I helped her set up a gaming space in her living room. A few of the moms came by to drop off snacks and introduce themselves in person. I feel like I've been adopted into a family of families, but I don't even have a family of my own. Everyone's been great. I'm so glad Simon is surrounded by these people and not people like his mom. The kids were all very well behaved. Anna and I were a bit nervous being the chaperones for them, but Simon's friends were great. They all had a blast making characters and doing the test encounters I had for them. There's a girl who made sure she was always seated next to Simon and barely took her eyes off him. She has a huge crush on him, but I don't think he even realizes what's going on. It's adorable. The parents were all happy with game night, and honestly, I liked running a game for all the kids way more than I had expected. Anna and I agreed we were fine with doing this regularly, so now Anna and I are the game masters to everyone. Also, I'm now Uncle Caleb to Simon. Not sure what I did to earn the title, and I definitely didn't get emotional when he called me that. So that's about it. I still run 2 games. I've been adopted by a 9-year-old, and I've taken over Anna's living room with minis and battle mats. Simon is an incredible little dude, and I'm glad to have met him and his amazing family. One parent excluded. Edit. Just gonna sneak this in here because people are actually messaging me like crazy, and I want to state my status with Anna. I am deeply infatuated with her. I could just go on about her like a love-struck puppy, but I'm embarrassing myself enough as it is. We've got a busy next couple of weeks ahead of us, but luckily for me, a lot of that busy time will be spent with her, working on things for Simon and the game nights. So for now, I'm gonna let things be. Give us time to get to know each other better. We've been texting regularly for the last few days, and I'm starting to think there's something there. Once things calm down, I fully intend to ask her on a date. Too many folks in my life and on here are telling me I'd be an idiot not to. I also spoke with Drew, Simon's dad, this morning. He's doing all right. He said he'll be better in a few weeks when he's able to take some vacation. He's going to take Simon on a father-son trip for a few days. He's exhausted. Even with the reduced workload, he's just now getting time to rest. Poor guy really needs it. Update. The more time I spent with Anna, the more confident I got that asking her out was the right call. So I asked her out and she said yes. Unfortunately, Anna gets migraines regularly and one hit just before our date. I came over and she was visibly miserable, but trying to convince me it was okay to still go out. I practically had to order her to go back to bed. Got her migraine pills and some water for her, blacked out the curtains, and told her to call if she needed anything. She called me a few hours later asking for something to eat because she was feeling better, so I got some dinner and ate with her. She kept trying to apologize, but I told her to make it up to me with another date the next day, which we were able to actually go on. It was a fantastic night, had some amazing food and walked around town and talked, then went back to drop her off and we sat out in my car for another hour to talk. The last thing she said before getting out and running in was, "You're my boyfriend now, by the way," before shutting the door. I had no intention to argue even if she had left me time to. Since then, we've gone on a few more dates with our free time and we're both really happy with how things are going. It turns out Anna was a few days away from asking me out herself if I hadn't made a move. I guess that's it. In the last few weeks, my life has changed so drastically, it's insane. Am I the jerk for telling my parents to not include my stepdaughter in their will? I, 35 female, have 2 kids, 17-year-old twins, and one stepdaughter who's 18, who I met when she was 11. The other day I was at my parents' house going over some estate planning since I'm the executor. While reviewing, I saw that my parents had split their assets. Half would go to my 2 siblings and me, and the other half to their grandkids, all distributed evenly. My stepdaughter was included. When I asked them about this, they said they wanted to be fair. Their estate isn't super large, but the sum would be substantial. Think a new car. I told my parents that while generous, I didn't think it was necessary and suggested it might be better to split the inheritance between their 5 biological grandkids. When we got home, my husband said he overheard what I said and accused me of being a jerk for alienating his daughter. I explained my reasoning. She's the only child/grandchild/niece on both sides of her family and will be taken care of. Her grandparents own multiple properties. Her uncles are well off and live in a high cost of living area, and she likely won't have cousins on that side of the family. Plus, their collective net worth is much higher than my family's. I also asked him if his parents included my kids in their estate, but he refused to answer. Still, he insisted I was being a jerk and accused me of not caring about her future. I believe I was doing the right thing by looking out for my kids and their cousins. Am I the jerk? Edit. 1. I didn't argue with or pressure my parents to make a change. I simply mentioned that I didn't feel it was necessary for her to receive a monetary amount. 2. My mom plans on giving her a set of family heirloom jewelry that's her birthstone, which I think is quite thoughtful. I'm not a big jewelry person, and she has other sets for the other girls in the family, so I feel like this is okay. 3. My parents have seen her about 3 to 5 times a year since I met her. 4. My nephews and my kids don't have active relationships with their biological father's side. My niece is a new mom and works at a restaurant. I feel that even a small financial inheritance would be more impactful for them. I want to know if your daughter is included in his parents' will. He has nothing to say if they don't. You won't change your phone number? Challenge accepted. Christine used to have my phone number over 3 years ago. Clearly, she didn't want the baggage in her life to follow her to the new number. Debt collectors, old flames, and others. I can understand this, and Christine, I hope your new life is better today. The debt collectors gave up pretty quickly. I haven't heard from one of them in about 2 years now. Some of the old flames were very persistent, but eventually they gave up too. The last call or text from her past lovers was about a year ago. The big challenge has been her family, personal appointments, mostly text confirmations from doctors, hairdressers, nails, etc., and even her employer. I still get the occasional call or text from family members who can't seem to understand why Christine didn't share her new details. Sorry, I can't help you figure out her motivations. As the calls and text came in, I would explain that this wasn't her number anymore and ask them to get her to update her details. It's the normal stuff when someone changes their number. People would say, "Thanks, we'll get her to update," but nothing really changed. Over time, I started getting frustrated. I even cited HIPAA to medical offices and became a bit of a nuisance to others. That helped a little, but largely there was no change. When personal appointment confirmations kept coming in more than a year later, I had enough. I accepted the challenge of forcing change. I ignored the confirmation messages until the day before, when the last reminder typically gets sent out. Then I canceled everything. If they called to confirm, I simply said, "Sorry, Christine can't make it anymore." Slowly, she started changing her number. No one wants their appointments canceled after waiting for weeks or months, especially when it's nearly impossible to reschedule in any reasonable time frame. The best moment was about a year in when I got a text from her boss. He wanted her to come in early for a special meeting the next day. I did the only reasonable thing. I politely quit for her. The next day, I received a very angry text from her boss, calling my message unprofessional, unkind, not funny. My response? Get Christine to change her number. Shortly after, I got a very angry text from Christine herself. My response? Change your number or I'll keep canceling your appointments. At that point, I don't think she realized how her appointments were getting canceled. A second, even angrier text followed. I just laughed in response. Guess what? No more personal appointments. I still get the occasional family member though. How lazy can people be? My husband keeps getting more attractive and I don't like it. Me, 32 female, and my husband, 32 male, have been together for 8 years, married for 5. I'm not ashamed to say I was the pretty one in our relationship when we were dating. Before we got married, he was around 280 pounds and 5'11". Didn't know how to choose clothes for himself. He hates shopping and had a bald head. I fell in love with who he was as a person, even though I never cared for his looks. I was secretly assured that he wouldn't cheat on me. I was cheated on every single one of my relationships until he came along. Into our second year of marriage, his sister had to lose a ton of weight due to heart issues, and he started going to the gym with her 5 times a week to support her. I was very supportive of him to start exercising and thought it was very sweet of him to support his sister. With 2.5 years of hard work, they both lost a lot of weight. He specifically lost around 100 pounds, and turns out he has very blessed genes. I'm talking about full-on abs and everything. Never knew you can grow a jawline just by losing weight. I was very proud of him and was pleasantly surprised. Then, soon after, he got a promotion at work. He became head of his department, and his former boss advised that he should look more presentable as a representation of their department. My husband took his words to heart and turned to me for help. We went on a shopping spree and let his hair grow out. Well, again, turns out he has a beautiful head of hair. By this time, my husband was a very attractive man. Then a month later, he went to a company anniversary party with his coworkers. I noticed that women at the party were just swooning over my husband, and even worse, he just didn't realize it. I learned from his coworker that most single women, even some of the married ones, are actively throwing themselves at him at work. There was one younger one who gave him a kiss on his cheek while we were sitting together. I talked to him about it, and he said, "Well, she's French. I thought French people are like that. I guess I'll keep my distance from her." Honestly, it was a dumb response, but it's just so like him. I don't like how much attention he's getting. I feel like as soon as we get into a rough patch, or if we get into one, there are a ton of women who will be throwing themselves at him. I'm scared that some of these women will affect him, and he is a pretty naive person. Note that he was everything I could ask for in marriage and has been great, if not perfect husband for me over the years. I feel like such a jerk for wishing he stayed physically the same. I think you need to get therapy. Also, the idea that someone overweight won't cheat because you set an attractiveness scale and they fall below that scale is quite frankly ridiculous. You have 8 years of experience and understanding with this guy, and that should be what drives your mindset, not some surface looks BS. From what you've said, he seems to only have eyes for you, is only interested in you, and wants to be with you. Like I said, go get some therapy, because I don't think he's the problem here, but your attitude towards him very well could be. Am I the jerk for no longer being concerned that my son refuses to deal with me? Let me start this off by saying that I love my son. I fought for many years with his mother to be in his life, only to be met with constant resistance. She honestly didn't care if I was there or not, as long as the child support was paid. I heard nothing from her otherwise. I truly believe she didn't want me in his life. She would plan things on my scheduled visitations and wouldn't let me make them up the following weekend, which became aggravating. When it came to things he wanted to do, I wasn't going to stop him. I didn't mind sacrificing the time because I understand he'd want to hang out with his friends, his girlfriend, or attend family events. I made the biggest mistake when I told her one day that he could come over whenever he wanted. He had friends, a girlfriend, and was a teenager. I understood. I was that age once. Let him have fun. But this ultimately backfired. After that phone call, I saw him once more, and that was it. To this day, I don't know what was said to him, and that was 7 years ago. I couldn't have his phone number or email. To be clear, he's now an adult, and I still don't know his phone number. He refuses to see or speak to me or anyone on my side of the family. She did let him talk to my mother before she passed, so he could say goodbye, only to turn around and say I had kept it from him, even though I had told her long before. I ended up having a conversation with a friend about this, as she had asked me about it. I told her I've yet to hear from him, and I'm not worried about it. I stopped worrying about things I can't control a long time ago. She asked me a question. How would you feel if he never bothered with you for the rest of your life, never let you know if you were a grandparent, and just never let you know anything about his life? I told her I had thought about that before, and to be honest, it wouldn't bother me. I've been estranged for 7 years now. I've missed all the major milestones. I miss seeing him become an adult. At this point, I have no idea who he is, and he's basically a stranger to me. At some point, you accept that this is your situation, and there's not much you can do about it. After a while, you stop caring because you realize you'll drive yourself crazy and keep yourself depressed over something you have no control over. This answer did not go well. Let me state this. She's married and they have kids. I believe this adds context to why she responded the way she did, which I understood and respected, though I don't agree with it. She said I'd become heartless and cold, and she couldn't believe I'd think that way after all the years of fighting I did. She said she never could have imagined that I'd think like that. You're a parent, she said. You're supposed to never stop fighting, no matter how many walls you have to climb. I'm truly shocked and disappointed you'd think like this. I love you. We've been good friends for many years, but I can't agree with your line of thought on this. So Reddit, what do you think? Am I the jerk for my view of this situation with my son? Not the jerk. You're burnt out from trying to figure out relationship boundaries with not only your son, but also your ex. You're pulling away because it's hard to figure out what you need in an incredibly stressful situation, even if the stress isn't there at the moment. Hopefully in time you can reconcile with your son in a positive way. But burning out doesn't make you a jerk. Your friend is speaking from the standpoint of someone who has not had to go through the same experiences. Let me get this straight. When your son was a teen, you told your ex that it would be up to your son to decide when to come see you, thus putting the onus for communication and visitation on him. While he was still a kid, did you bother to invite him over to see you or do activities with you? Did you regularly call him, send birthday cards, invite him for holidays, show up to major events? Or did you just wait for your teen son to initiate all contact with you? Because you were the parent, it was your job to reach out to him. If his mom prevented you from talking directly to him, it was your job to go through the court system to make sure you had an unobstructed avenue of contact. If he had lots of activities or social stuff he wanted to do during your time with him, then your job was to figure out how you could get those things done while he spent time with you. Not gonna lie, it sounds like you sat on your butt and put the onus on your kid to have a relationship with you. I wouldn't call you either. Am I the jerk for removing my pregnant wife's hands from my plate and telling her to stop grabbing my food? My wife is 7 months pregnant, and I understand that being pregnant is not easy. Growing a whole human being inside of you means naturally needing to eat more, but my wife won't stop eating my food. At first, I let it slide because I was trying to be understanding, but it just hasn't stopped. Most days, after coming back from work and looking forward to my only meal of the day, she casually starts eating off my plate while I'm eating. This happens even after she has already eaten her own meal. When we eat at the same time, she goes back and forth between our plates. Last night was the final straw. After a long day at work, I was very hungry. As we started eating, she reached for my plate to grab something before even touching her food. I pushed her hands away and told her to stop eating my food, explaining that I was tired of not being able to eat in peace while she gets to. She started crying and told me that I could try to understand it's because she's pregnant, gets really hungry and can't help it, instead of being a jerk about it. Edit. I'd like to clarify a few things people have been asking. My wife is not usually like this. We eat the same food, but being pregnant obviously makes her eat more, which I understand. She's working part-time because of pregnancy-related issues, so we are on a very tight budget. We're also preparing for the baby, which is why I eat 1 meal a day to stretch our food. She gets a bit more than me, so she usually eats hers in 2 intervals during the day, and I only eat mine at dinner. It's not a simple case of buying more food, snacks, or cooking bigger portions. If we could, we would. I hate this situation, especially for her. It breaks my heart and makes me feel like a horrible husband. My wife is my whole world, and I would have loved for her to have a normal pregnancy where she could eat whatever she wanted to her heart's content, feeding her cravings. But right now, we can't. This isn't ideal or permanent, but we are doing the best we can with a pregnancy that we didn't plan for. I realize now I should have been more gentle. I was just frustrated, but I apologized to her. I understand that what she was doing isn't the worst thing in the world given our circumstances. Go to a food bank or a soup kitchen. Make that a part of your regular routine. Get on food stamps. You need to start figuring out how you're going to get enough food when you have another mouth to feed. Your wife and your kid need more food, and so do you. Neighbor blocked our car in the driveway, so I got her car towed. My fiance, 30 female, and I, 29 male, barely moved into this house a few months ago. The first week, we noticed a car parked right on our driveway, which obviously didn't belong there. When we went outside, the lady who lived next door asked if this was okay. Her house is right at the corner of the street and there's no driveway. She said the last owner was fine with letting her park there, so she hoped we wouldn't mind. Our driveway is big enough for 2 cars, so we said for now it was okay. After our son was born and I had to go back to work, we decided to buy a second car so it's easier for her to get around. All 3 cars don't fit, so we had to tell our neighbor she can't park there anymore. Ever since, it's become a whole issue. Once, she was parked behind me when I was leaving early in the morning, so I had to go banging on her door at 6 a.m. She had the audacity to be mad for me waking her up. I reminded her that she can't park there again, so we thought she got the message. Second time was when we were on our way home from the park. She was already parked there, so we would have had to park behind her. I went to go knock, and she said she was just putting her groceries away since we weren't home and the driveway is closer. This last time when it happened, my car wasn't working, so my brother came to pick me up early. My fiance had to take our son to his 4-month appointment, but the lady's darn car was parked right behind her, so there was no way for her to pull out of the driveway. She told me the neighbor wasn't answering the door. It got late, so she had to reschedule her appointment. I came home after and I called the cops to come deal with this because I was just so tired. Since they couldn't reach her, they did end up towing the car. Once she found out, she was at my door, angry. She had been a few blocks down at her friend's house, which was why she didn't answer. But now she says she's stressed because she doesn't have the money to get her car back and it's our fault. Since both our cars were there, she assumed we were both home, and if anything, we would have used my car to pull out of the driveway. My neighbor kept complaining how wrong we were to go to that extreme of making her lose her car when she absolutely needs it. We've just ignored her since then, but now every time we're stepping out, she glares right at us. I've had my car towed before too, so we know it's a nightmare of a feat to get it out of impound. That's why I'm asking if I'm the jerk. It's been almost a week since this happened, with still no sign of her car parked on the street, so obviously she hasn't got it back yet. Not the jerk. You asked nicely, she ignored you. You pounded on her door on repeated occasions not so nicely, and she ignored that you didn't want her parking there. The next logical step was to get the car towed, because she wasn't getting the message. Bet she won't park there once she has her car back. Problem solved. Also, if the doctor charged you for a visit that you had to cancel last minute, I would send the bill to her too. Don't expect her to pay it, but at least to realize that she is costing you for being the jerk. In my opinion, you gave her too many chances. None of this was your fault. You were 100% clear with her from the beginning. Your neighbor has some seriously skewed way of rationalizing this. Don't let it rub off on you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. If she needed her car, she shouldn't be parking it somewhere where she knew she no longer had permission to park it. Get a camera though, because retaliation is likely. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you get your neighbor's car towed if they kept parking in your driveway or not? Please let us know. I sure would, but first I'd throw about a dozen eggs on it, especially if it's a really hot day. Yes. Customer's milkshake isn't milky enough. Years ago, I used to work at a popular ice cream joint. The place was pretty chill, coworkers were fun to be around, and the pay was alright for a teenager. But, as with every other food service job, the customers made the experience a whole lot worse. Always had the regular annoyances, people yelling at you for long wait lines, orders being wrong, etc. Even had a guy get up on the counter and go off on me because we were out of bananas for banana splits. But one experience really stood out from the others. We had a regular customer who would come in, no kidding, every day to get a strawberry shake. He was fine with long waits or if our card machines were down. But this dude would summon the might of the devil if his milkshake wasn't made with enough milk in it. Worse, he would sit there and wait until you remade it to his liking. Stupid store policy made us remake any order for free if the customer wasn't happy with it. One day this dude comes in and orders, guess what? A strawberry milkshake. I was working the ice cream bar, so filled with defeat, I started making his order. Company recipe was 3 scoops of ice cream for a regular smoothie. Since I knew this guy liked his milky, I only put 2. I handed it to him and went about the next orders, until 5 minutes later he comes back and screams at me that the milkshake wasn't milky enough. Now, every time in the past, I always made his this way, 2 scoops to give it that milky consistency. This time, I guess he wanted to just mess with me. At this point, I'd had enough. The day had been rough as it is, so I really didn't want to handle this. especially since I could tell by the grin on his face that he was trying to make my day worse. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. I decided to make the milkiest milkshake possible, but while still being a milkshake by technicality. I went back to my station and started the concoction. I didn't put 2 scoops, I didn't put 1 scoop. I put 1 tablespoon of strawberry ice cream and filled it up to the brim with milk. After the pointless blending, I handed him the milkshake he didn't want, but the one he deserved. I watched him with my own grin on my face beaming back at him while he tried his milkshake. He took a sip and immediately started going off on me that it was just milk. I told him, "No, sir, I put strawberry ice cream in there, just as you asked." I could see the rage in his eyes as he demanded his order be remade. I then politely informed him, "Our store policy only lets you have your order remade once for free." His face burned bright red as he muttered something under his breath, then stormed out the door, slamming it behind him. Every time after that, he never asked for me to remake his order. A few months later, I got a better job where I didn't have to deal with angry customers. I used to work at an ice cream store as well. We had a guy who asked for a blueberry shake with extra blueberries. When he got his shake, he complained that there weren't enough blueberries in it. Fine, we made him another one with even more blueberries, but still not an unreasonable amount. He then complained that there were too many blueberries and that they kept clogging up his straw. The manager gave him a soda spoon and told him to leave. I really want some ice cream now. Am I the jerk for wanting my stepdaughter to switch schools her junior year to live with us? My husband and I have been married for 2 years and have 5 kids. His daughter from a previous marriage, who's 16, my 2 sons from a previous relationship, 13 and 15, and 2 kids together who are 3 and 1. My husband's daughter lived primarily with her mother until she was in 8th grade, when she was offered a scholarship to go to a very good boarding school for high school. I've never agreed with the idea of sending teenagers to live away from family, but her mother and my then fiance agreed that it would be beneficial for her. They drafted a new custody agreement to reflect the new school schedule. My husband moved out of state, so he always had summers and holidays anyway. When I married my husband, I thought that she would be just a day boarder, which seems better than full-time, so I let it go. By the time I learned the truth, 2020 was in full swing, and removing her wouldn't have been safe even if she wanted to leave, which she didn't. Fast forward to 2022. She's 16 years old and a junior. I recently learned that her mother moved back to her home country 6 months ago and has been letting my stepdaughter manage her own money. This means that there's now not even a parent in the same state or even the side of the country for my stepdaughter. She is completely independent in her day-to-day life. My stepdaughter has every weekend unsupervised to do whatever she pleases and independent access to not only multiple major cities, but is only a day trip from another country that she has dual citizenship in. I've seen Facebook posts of her going to art shows in other states without even pretending to ask one of her parents for permission. This isn't acceptable. It's not okay for a teen to just go live her own life, especially to this degree. We have 2 sons that are only 1 and 3 years behind her, and they're starting to see the double standard as well. I would never let any of my kids do the things my stepdaughter is doing. She's my kid too, and this needs to stop. She needs to change schools to be either with her mother or with us and be part of a family. My husband says that it's different because she was raised differently and is just more responsible, but that's BS. If he actually thinks she's not being a normal 16-year-old with that level of freedom, he's lying to himself. My stepdaughter loves her school, of course, and is very resistant to changing schools for all of 1 year of high school to leave her friends, and no doubt doesn't want to actually have rules. I'm still pushing the issue, and now my husband and stepdaughter are mad at me for trying to change the status quo. The boys are mad at me for having double standards, and other family members are mad at me for either over or understepping in my role. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She's at a boarding school and doesn't need to ask permission to see art shows. You're being dramatic, and she's not even your kid. On top of that, you're controlling. You're acting as if she's getting into trouble and interacting with bad people her age or older. Calm down. You have no good reason for her to change schools, and you are overstepping your role. Her parents already created a plan, and you have to respect that. She's asking the school for day-to-day things she would need parental permission for, and unless OP is a time traveler, the telephone and email exists. Stepdaughter could very well be asking mom over the phone or via text to be getting permission to travel out of state. The only point OP might have is to suggest that dads, assuming he wants that, permission be necessary to travel out of state, etc. Most teenagers have spending money that they can act with on their own. Daughter likely has a roommate and an RA equivalent on the floor, house mother, etc., which are possibly stricter than most parents. I'm sure his kid would tell him before she goes out of state, so it's not like she's completely running rogue. OP is just mad she has no control over a situation that doesn't concern her. You're the jerk. She hasn't given you any reason to doubt her ability to take care of herself and behave appropriately, so you would be punishing her for literally nothing. She's going to art shows? How wild. Just leave the kid alone. She's not your kid, and she's been fine this long. Removing her from a situation that works for her and isn't harming anyone would be cruel and unreasonable. You should be proud she's independent and cultured. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk, or is she in the right? Please let us know. I heard chill pills are on sale right now, just FYI. Am I the jerk for showing my husband proof that his mom offered to bring him a steak dish to the hospital? My husband was in an accident last week. He was staying at the hospital for his broken leg. Only me and his mom were there. His mom and I don't get along at all. He tells me I'm overreacting or paranoid whenever I point out how she's mistreating me. He complained about hospital food, saying it had no taste, and asked me to make his favorite meal, which is a steak dish, and bring it to him at the hospital. Noting that steak isn't cheap where we live, and I didn't have enough time to prepare it, I told him I will see what I can do. Then his mom said if I'm truly a supportive wife, then I'd make it happen. Once we went outside his room, his mom's tone changed. She suddenly seemed nice and said that she could see how exhausted I was, and so I should go home and not worry about the steak dish because she said she'd make it for him. I asked if she was 100% sure, and she said, absolutely. The next visit I showed up, and my husband asked why I didn't bring the steak dish he asked for. I saw his mom there. I told him his mom offered to make it for him instead and told me not to worry about it. He didn't believe me and was like, Mom said that? I'm not buying it. Mom, you really said that? Her reaction shocked me. She acted confused and said that I'm his wife, and she didn't know why I'd expect her to perform my duties for me. I was confused and didn't know what to do. My husband seemed upset the entire visit, and I waited till his mom left to talk. I swore to him his mom said she'd take care of it, but he said he didn't believe me. I pulled my phone out, called his mom, and put her on speaker so he could hear the conversation. I said, "Didn't you say you'd make the steak dish and that I didn't have to worry about it?" She replied, "I did, but I obviously wasn't actually going to do it. I was just trying to help my son see how his wife is during the rough times, and you took the bait." My husband raised his eyebrow. He got upset. He called her later and picked a fight, then said no more visiting. She lost it, called me petty and manipulative, and blasted me on Facebook, saying I stopped her from seeing her son only because I couldn't get her to do things for me, like cooking for my own husband. Now his family is criticizing me for this. Not the jerk, but your husband and his mother both are. Who demands that people bring them steak dinners in the hospital? He didn't like the hospital food? What a baby. Bad apples don't fall far from the bad tree. I don't see him demanding anything here. He asked, she said she'd see what she can do. He followed up on it later. And if you've ever had hospital food, or if your coping mechanisms revolve around food at all, you'd know why he was asking for a decent meal in a stressful time. He's not the jerk, and OP is not the jerk. His mother is completely the jerk here. He is the jerk for never believing his wife when it comes to how his mother treats her. And it sounds like he got undeniable proof that OP was right all along, doesn't it? At which point he immediately changed his tune, which is 100% the appropriate reaction. The appropriate reaction would be to trust your spouse in the first place without them having to trick the other party into admitting the truth. OP literally says, "But he didn't believe me." You don't get kudos for finally believing her when the proof is irrefutable. Edit. I'm not replying to this any further because people apparently can't fathom their mom lying to them. I never said spouses don't lie, but if you are in a marriage where you don't believe your spouse on something like this, I'm sorry. Not the jerk. She called you manipulative? To be honest, he doesn't sound ideal. I'm sure he can cope with hospital food for a few days. Also, bring a steak dish? It will be cold and a mess to eat. Just bring him pizza or something. If you don't have kids already, I'd suggest you move as far as you can. She will make your life horrible. You're clearly, in her eyes, a bad wife. Next, you'll be a bad mother. Am I the jerk? I didn't disclose the details of my inheritance to my wife. My wife has been a stay-at-home wife since the beginning of our marriage. She got an inheritance from her grandfather a few years ago. It was about 5 million Indian rupees, about 65,000 US dollars. I was super excited when I came to know about it, thinking we'd be able to finally repay our previous landlord. However, she refused, saying that it's her money gifted to her by her grandfather. She also said that it was the only money she could claim as just hers, so she wanted to keep it. I was super hurt because I've never once told her that my earnings were mine only. I always treated it like our money. I then told her that if she didn't share her inheritance, any future inheritances of mine wouldn't be shared among us either. She agreed. She then went on to buy herself a car. Fast forward to now, almost 4 years later. My parents left me their entire assets, which comes to about 40 million Indian rupees, about 522,000 US dollars. I told my wife I got an inheritance, and she seemed quite unbothered by it. She said that I can do whatever I want with it. First, I paid off my student loans and bought myself a nice laptop. Then I invested the rest of it. My wife asked me where I got the money to pay off my student loans and buy myself a laptop. I reminded her about my inheritance. She was surprised that my inheritance was so much and started saying that I was selfish for not having told her the exact amount. I reminded her of our agreement and said that it shouldn't matter how much inheritance I got, since each of us was free to do whatever we wanted with our own inheritances. I also told her that if she had asked me, I would have told her. She started crying and said that I kept such a big information away from her. She's locked herself in the room and is refusing to speak to me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Also, point to be noted is that 30 million out of the 40 million was used to repay my student loans. I spent close to about 2 lakhs on my laptop. I invested 8 lakhs. I studied abroad, so my student loans were a lot. Your wife. I don't think we should share inheritances. You. Don't share your inheritance. Your wife. Why didn't you share? Not the jerk. She made her own bed. You both probably need to get better about viewing this marriage as a partnership. But in this specific situation, she's in the wrong. Everyone sucks here. Fair is fair, but you two are going to have a terrible life together if you carry on this way. Not the jerk. I don't think of inheritances as a marriage property. Your wife is being a hypocrite because she agreed that your inheritance is yours. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Yowza, I'm getting stressed out just thinking about dealing with her. Am I the jerk for feeding my sister non-vegan food while babysitting? My dad has a 4-year-old daughter with his current wife, my stepmom. My stepmom is vegan and extremely health conscious after surviving cancer, and only allows my sister food that's vegan and organic. She believes that anything else is bad for you. I try to be understanding of this, although I myself am not a vegan or vegetarian. She asked me last minute to babysit my sister last week and dropped her off at my apartment at around 9 a.m. that morning. She initially told me that she'd only be gone for 2 to 3 hours, but didn't pick her up until almost 2 p.m. due to an appointment running late. My stepmom packed a bag that contained only apple slices, a zip bag of cauliflower crackers, and some organic juice. By noon, I was hungry and didn't want to make myself food without feeding her, and she had already eaten her snacks. My healthy food options were limited, so I made some veggie pizzas for us and gave her juice and fruit snacks as well. After my stepmom came to pick her up, I told her what we had for lunch, and she was upset that I gave her daughter non-vegan cheese and fruit snacks, but referred to everything as unhealthy. She thought I should have either waited until she came to pick her up or given her some of my raw veggies that we put on the pizza to tide her appetite over until she was picked up. My dad has since informed me that my stepmom doesn't want me to babysit again until I can learn to respect her wishes regarding her parenting. I can see how I may be the jerk, given that I knew it wasn't vegan, but then I also tried my best and didn't just plop a steak in front of her. Opinions? Am I the jerk? Edit. I did not call or text beforehand because my stepmom informed me that her phone would be on silent while she was at her appointments. I also did not have a booster seat to drive to the store, and food delivery services are expensive where I live, which I don't really have the extra money for at this moment. Broke college student things. Anyway, I was told to add this information to the post, so I hope it provides for clarity. Not the jerk. Were you supposed to just skip feeding her daughter lunch because she failed to provide you with food? Your dad has informed you that stepmom doesn't want you to babysit until you can learn to respect her wishes? First of all, you did this last minute as a favor, so it sounds to me like she's the one who needs you to be willing to babysit, not the other way around. Secondly, you don't need to learn to respect her wishes. She needs to provide you with food so you can respect her wishes. I'm guessing her anger at you is going to last right up until she needs a last-minute babysitter again, and then she'll remember to pack enough food. Stepmom may be livid with OP now, but she'll be there when she needs you. You did the best you could under the circumstances. Am I the jerk for demanding to be a partner in my wife's business? During lockdown, my wife took up crafting and has become quite good at it. She makes beautiful creations. We've talked in general terms about setting up a business or renting a table at a craft show to sell her goods, but didn't take any concrete action until recently. One day, my wife was commenting how she wished she could do her crafts as a full-time job. I decided to surprise her and registered her preferred domain name, and over the course of a couple weeks, secretly built her an online store. I showed her the store and things got real very quickly. We built a business plan, spent several $1,000s of joint funds and startup costs, and have been actively pursuing sales, with some early success and positive feedback. It is the early days and we are not yet profitable. I am involved in all aspects of the business: procurement, sales, marketing, fulfillment, except design and production. I have also happily taken on more of the housework so she has time to create products. Over the last few days, my wife has gotten very territorial and cringes when I talk about our business. At times, she actively tries to correct me and insists it is her business. She sees my role somewhere between an employee and what is expected of a supportive husband. I get it. This business is her dream that I was helping her realize. I don't want to overstep, and I have reassured her that she is CEO and gets final say over all aspects of the business, but I am still a co-founder and owner. I feel like the recognition that this is a joint business is important given the amount of time and energy we're both investing into it. It is a journey we are doing together. Life partners and business partners. Her dream has become my dream. Here's where I may be the jerk. My wife continues to be protective, and I told my wife that unless she accepts me as a partner, let's say 49%, I will find other ways to support her, but won't be working on the business. There is too much work for one person to do, and I'm afraid of sabotaging the business by ceasing work. She's given me lame answers that she appreciates my support, but won't say the magic words that she considers me a business partner. Am I overstepping, and am I the jerk? Summary: I helped my wife start a business. I may be the jerk for refusing to work on the business because my wife refuses to recognize me as a business partner. Everyone sucks here. You are assuming ownership of an entity you were not invited to own. Your partner is exploiting the labor of a third party, you, without fair compensation. You are entitled to an ownership stake considering the effort you have put in, but you grossly overstepped assuming it. Your wife's casual dismissal of the value of your contribution is ungrateful, naive, and exploitive. You both should have hashed this out first. That's the vibe I'm getting. Maybe the wife would have been perfectly fine doing all of this from the jump by herself, but OP sorta made himself a co-owner without her expressed consent or knowledge when he did all that initial stuff by himself. Granted, she benefited a lot, but it wouldn't be surprising if she felt some ways about her expressing she wanted to do this business herself, and then suddenly he's inserted himself into every aspect of it, starting it without her, and is now demanding half ownership of what she probably wanted to be her own business venture. I agree everyone sucks here. She's benefited greatly from his contributions, but I don't blame her for feeling some resentment towards him for how he went about a lot of this. I'd personally feel some kind of way if I told my spouse I wanted to start my own company and they took it upon themselves to start it without me. I'm sure she appreciated the effort and thought, but I'd be upset if I didn't get to be a primary part of the initial startup for my dream business idea. That's the part that sticks out to me. He took something she wanted to do for herself, did it without her in secret, and then co-opted her dream as now being their dream once he realized he could make a buck off of it. This doesn't feel like helping, it feels like he railroaded so that he could put her in exactly this position. She either accepts his terms or he quits on her and ruins the business he started for her behind her back. You're the jerk. You used a surprise to shoehorn yourself into her project. Not okay. Your surprise was in no way a gift if it actually meant that you were going to claim half ownership. And you never should have presented finished things to her as a means to demand ownership of a business that she wanted to start. Ownership and respective job roles should have been discussed in advance of any work, and you circumvented that and demanded partnership based on work she did not ask you for. You are being a sketchy and manipulative business partner here. You're the jerk. You turned doing a nice thing for your wife into a hostile takeover. And then when you don't get your own way, you try to pull the rug out from under her. You're the jerk because you took on a bunch of tasks for her without talking to her ahead of time and set all these expectations, and then demanded that she meet your expectations that you didn't discuss with her first. Seriously, dude, don't mix personal relationships with business. I'll be the one to say it. If the roles were reversed, most of you would be supporting her. You started the business, girl. You deserve more than half. Don't let him take advantage of you like that. This is one of those posts where you all just hate the dude because this is Reddit. Edit, I'm a girl, but I've spent enough time on Reddit to know how y'all think. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend's colleagues that I won't cook for them anymore? I, female, live with my boyfriend in a condo we rent together in Toronto. I'm Indian and I moved here about 3 years ago and he's Canadian. I love cooking and I'm vegetarian since birth. He became a vegetarian because of his ex and he didn't want to switch after breaking up with her. Thank goodness for me, because I don't know how to cook meat. I only know how to make Indian food, but I learned quite a bit of new recipes during lockdown, and I experiment with this because we both work from home. Recently, he started going to the office, and I made lunch for him daily. After a week or so, he told me not to wake up early to make lunch just for him, but I told him I didn't mind that. He then mentioned the reason, stating it was because his colleagues and friends eat his lunch anyway, because it's homemade, and he eats whatever takeout or food they get. So I told him that I can pack an extra portion, which they can share, and that was working well for a few weeks. Last weekend, he decided to invite his said friends over because we haven't officially met. When they came over, they appreciated the homemade food, and it's something they look forward to, but one person pointed out that I don't pack enough protein, and I should pack food that has a balanced diet. I sorta don't remember what he said after that because I was internally crying. When my boyfriend saw my reaction change, he told him that he never seems to care about protein when he's gulping down all the beer, and that's when the group sorta divided into two. I then told them that I will stop cooking for all of them, and one of those guys pointed out that I was the jerk for punishing the entire group because of one person's comment. P.S. I know this is childish, but I kind of took it personally because I love cooking so much. So much that my boyfriend does all the cleaning and dishes when I take care of cooking. I don't know if my reaction was a cultural thing and if this is taken as a joke here. Edit 1. Thank you so much, you guys are really sweet. Many commented to ask why my boyfriend gave his food away. He told me during lunch when he gets his food out, everybody would say something about the smell and would want to try a bite. Because it's about 5 people, he gives away 60% of his food. So I decided to make extra portion, though it's not sufficient for all 5. My boyfriend would at least eat his tummy full. Honestly, I taught him to share food, and I think it's my fault to begin with. Edit 2. Because most of my time in Canada has been during lockdown, I don't have a lot of friends. Please feel free to DM me if you live near Toronto, and I promise you a good meal with plenty of protein. Not the jerk. You've been overly kind and generous. If you don't want to cook for any reason, then don't. They can bring their own lunches to work. OP. That's the problem. They seldom bring lunch and only order food. That's not healthy compared to homemade food. But it's not your problem. You're not obligated to feed these moochers. Your boyfriend needs to stop letting people eat his food, and they need to figure out their own lunch. Not the jerk. My Karen sister expects me to pay her mortgage. My sister bought a house with her boyfriend last year. They got a mortgage, and when they broke up, he managed to wiggle his way out and leave her to keep paying the mortgage alone. She's making the payments, but barely, and she's had money issues that means she's at the point where she can't even afford dinner some nights. Obviously, we're, me, mom, dad, and siblings, worried about her, and we want to help her out. My current lease runs out at the end of the month, and half her mortgage is way less than the average rent in the area. So we talked, and I agreed that I, along with my 3 kids, would move in with her for a while. I would pay rent, which would cover half of her monthly mortgage payment and utilities, and we'd buy our own food, but we'd still share. This way, she'd get her mortgage paid off, my kids and I get to live in a nice house at below average rate, and we know that my sister is doing okay, financially and mentally. However, with less than a month before the move, we talked today to just get up to speed on how everything is going on her end, and she asked to rearrange a few things so that we can move in. She said, "Your half is all sorted." I asked what she meant. There are 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on each floor, so she was thinking that we could have the upstairs and she could have the downstairs. I asked what happens with the kitchen, and she explained that she'll have exclusive use of the kitchen, and when I bring my stuff over, we could set up a kitchenette, a microwave, a kettle, and a mini fridge on the top floor. I asked where my kids were meant to sleep, and she said that my daughter could sleep in my room and my sons could bunk together. My understanding before this was that I get my own room, as does my daughter, and there are no limits on floors or bathrooms or the kitchen, as my sister has said that as there were 4 bedrooms, there was enough room for everyone, and mentioned rearranging the rooms, so I assumed that she meant she was taking the fact I'm bringing 3 kids into consideration. She said as I'm paying for half of everything, I get half the house. I said that my kids and I can't share 2 bedrooms and a microwave, and she said I was being dramatic and we'll be fine. However, I said that this isn't going to work for us, and if she wants us to move in, we're going to need her to condense her office and bedroom into one room, so my daughter can have the free room, plus use of the kitchen. My sister said that as we would be using the majority of the house, I should pay at least 75% of the mortgage, possibly 100%, as there's 4 of us and 1 of her. I then said that this really is not going to work out for us, so I will look for a new place with my kids and she can figure her money out herself. She then called me a jerk as she could lose the house without my help, and said I was holding money over her head, and said I was entitled to think that I would get more than half the house when I'm only paying 50% of the mortgage. I said she's the one setting restrictions, and if I had known I was only paying for the top floor, then I wouldn't even have agreed to move in. Am I the jerk? Info. My sons are 11 and 13. My daughter is 5. My sister said if I paid 75% of the mortgage, I could either have a 3rd room or kitchen access, and 100% gets me 3 rooms and kitchen access, which is the point that I said this would not work out. Neighbor constantly complains about my noise waking up her baby. I've had enough. My garage is about 3 meters away from my neighbor's bedroom where their baby sleeps. I've got a roller door which beeps quietly 4 times within 20 seconds of me arriving home and pushing the button. It's so quiet that at times I can't hear it when sitting in the room adjacent to the garage when my partner comes home. Since my neighbor had her baby, I've made an effort to be more considerate of noise. Despite already soundproofing my rumpus room, I've stopped playing my drums after 6 p.m. I've also declined hosting friends outside in my backyard due to noise. I think I've been more than considerate, but apparently not. I get home from work at 11 p.m. and put my car in the garage. A couple weeks ago, my neighbor approached me and asked if I could wait until the morning to put my car away, but I declined as there have been break-ins to cars on our street lately. My car is also one that is targeted by thieves a lot as parts are expensive, and it's an enthusiast car. I apologized, but I was firm when telling her that I will not, under any circumstances, leave my car out overnight. I also know that they sleep with their window open that faces my garage, but I thought it would be weird to bring it up and suggest they close the window. I'm also confused as I have an aftermarket exhaust on the car which is louder than the original, but they've said nothing about that. A couple nights ago, I came home to her husband's car blocking my driveway, just enough that I couldn't get my car through. It was kind of useless because I pushed the button before I even reached my driveway, so it beeped anyway. They didn't come out, so I had their car towed, and they haven't done it since. Today, Saturday, I decided to play my drums around lunchtime in my soundproofed rumpus room. You can only hear minimal vibration from the kick from the outside, but it's at the rear of my property and quite far from any neighbors, but they still had something to say. The wife came over and basically said she had put up with my noise for long enough and that she was exhausted due to the kid never sleeping thanks to the noise I make. I was definitely still upset about the driveway blocking situation from the other night, and I snapped a little, telling her that I'd been considerate enough and already made concessions in terms of noise. I said that while it's within my rights to play music up until 10 p.m. in our council, I've cut myself off at 6 p.m. in consideration of her and her kid. I said that from now on, she'll have to get over it because I was done catering to her and her family. Not the jerk. It sounds like you've been very reasonable and you're allowed to live your life. They chose to have the baby. Surely they knew things might wake it up. And you're not supposed to keep things completely silent for the baby sleeping. They need to get used to a normal level of noise while sleeping. Obviously, don't vacuum the room they're in, but a neighbor's garage door is something they should be able to sleep through. Not the jerk. Not that it's a good excuse, but she's probably exhausted, and this is one of those need something to blame kind of things. She's probably fixated on you and your noise because it's something that's right next door and something she can directly attack in a manner of speaking. It sounds as if she's unlucky enough to have one of those babies that just doesn't sleep much, or well. That's not your fault though. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their neighbor? Please let us know. To be honest, I can't stand noise of any sort. That's why Reddit Boy and I live off-grid now. Highly recommended. The nice guy who lied to his date about who he was and really ended up paying for it. Long ago, I was waiting tables and I had a two-top. They looked to be on a date. Both were dressed up. She ordered a salad and he ordered a burger. She cocked her head to the side when he said that and she said, "I thought you were vegan." He laughed it off, said he was, but that sometimes he splurged. She didn't look happy about that, but said nothing. All I could think of was, awkward. He ordered a Guinness halfway through his meal, and she raised an eyebrow at that too. Wait a second, you said that you didn't drink either. He laughed it off again, saying he meant harder drinks. Certainly, beer wasn't an issue. I snuck away, but listened to them argue behind a server station. Her. I specifically wrote on my profile that I was a vegan and I didn't drink. Him, waving his hand at her. One beer isn't an issue. Plus, I haven't had meat in ages, at least a few weeks. Just because you don't doesn't mean your man can't. Her. I was looking for like-minded men, someone who also doesn't eat meat or drink. He cut her off. You know, I saw that on your profile, but I figured once you met me, you'd be open to it. Once you get to know me, I'm a great guy. You should give me a chance, despite our small differences. Her. So far, 2 important facts you told me about yourself were lies. I got busy and had to go do something. Dang it. When I looked back, the woman was gone. She had pretended to go to the bathroom, found another server, gave him money, and told him to give it to me. Then she fled the restaurant. Her date waited a bit, and then he started looking toward the bathroom to see where she was. I brought the check and had updated it to show the payment she had made. Him, after looking at the bill. She paid for her food? Where'd she go? Me. I think she may have left, sir. He gets angry. What? I shrugged. He got up, went to the bathroom door and knocked on it, calling her name. When nobody came out, he pushed the door open. I was about to tell him to get out of the restroom, but he saw it was empty and returned to the table. Digging for his wallet, he loudly complained about his date ditching him. He started telling the tables around him that his date had been a horrible person and had taken off. He used really mean words. I was shocked and they all looked uncomfortable. When I picked up his credit card to run it, he yelled at me, "Her loss. I make great money and have a big house. I have a boat. Her loss." I dropped his receipt while internally rolling my eyes at him. He had lied to her about who he was and it was her loss? Yeah, okay. Up until then, I had never encountered an r/nice guy before. What a tool. Edit. He did not tip me, but she left me $10. Am I the jerk for giving a very silly, ugly smile in meetings after my boss said I should smile more? I work in a tech consulting job. I'm the only woman on the team, and my boss told me I was coming off harsh with clients and should be more upbeat and smile more. It felt, ugh. I right away texted my group chat of coworkers without the management in it, asking, has Boss Man ever told any of you guys to smile more? It was an immediate round of no's, and a couple of my coworkers asked if he said that to me and pointed out the double standard. A few of my coworkers joked that some of the clients we have right now don't give them anything to smile about. So then I asked if any of them had ever been called harsh, and it was again all no's. I told them that Boss had told me to smile more, and one of my coworkers sent me a picture of someone pulling a silly face with a weird pinched smile and bug-out eyes saying, well, what Boss Man says, he gets. I thought that was hilarious and decided to actually do it. Anyway, I started smiling more and more around my boss, but also a bit stupidly, just keeping my mouth pinched tensely, gums on display, and purposely pulling my chin backwards towards my neck so I'd have a double chin. I never did it in front of actual clients, just my boss and coworkers who were in on the joke, and my boss kept looking uncomfortable when I did. He asked me at a meeting about a week in what the face I was pulling was. I said, what face? He said, that one, just a second ago. And my coworker said, wait, she was just smiling. What are you getting at her for? My boss said, it looked like she was making a face. And my other coworker pulled out his phone where he had some pictures from a recent happy hour where I was making that face to make my coworkers laugh. And he said, dude, what's wrong with you? That's literally her smile. Look at this picture from last Friday." And all of my coworkers backed him up, saying that was just how I smile. My boss was looking kind of incredulous, so I clarified that if something makes me spontaneously laugh or grin, it probably looks a little more relaxed. But when I'm just putting on a smile to be polite or pose for a picture, I guess that's how I smile. And I was trying to be polite after he let me know I was coming off harsh in meetings. Anyway, at my next one-on-one meeting, my boss said I didn't need to change my demeanor that much based on his comments, because honestly, it was coming off disingenuous, and that would look worse in front of clients. I just said, "Yeah, I guess I've never really been good at being super peppy without it looking fake." And as far as I know, that was the end of it. Except for it becoming a running joke at the office that I look like Nigel Thornberry, which is a pretty smashing nickname, honestly. But I feel a little bad that I basically gaslit my boss and my coworkers were in on it instead of being direct with them. Am I the jerk for my fake smile thing? You sound hilarious, and your coworkers sound like the most incredible people on this planet. Not the jerk, and thanks for bringing a smile to my own grouchy face. Not the jerk. He messed around and found out. Very glad your crew had your back. You all did the boss and the company a huge favor in settling this quietly amongst yourselves. It was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Boss man and the corporation would have lost, but you and your team would have also lost time, energy, and life joy. You're the jerk. You don't mention that he has a pattern of singling you out for things or negative interactions, so it sounds like this is an isolated incident. Have you ever thought that maybe this was legitimate feedback from your boss, and that you are unconsciously wearing facial expressions or acting in a way that makes clients uncomfortable? That maybe a client has said something to him? It doesn't matter if he's given that feedback to anyone else, because they may not have that issue. You then brought everyone else into it, coalition building, influencing how coworkers see him and potentially creating an HR situation for him, and because you were offended by what could have been a sincere suggestion. And even if you asked your coworkers if you should smile more, of course they most likely would say no, because they don't want to offend you. You then proceeded to mock him with that fake smile. You blew this totally out of proportion and potentially damaged your relationship with your boss because you have a chip on your shoulder and you're looking for things to be offended about. If you knew how hard it can be to have conversations with your subordinates on how they interact with customers, you would give him the benefit of the doubt. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boss? Please let us know. Smiling is overrated. I haven't smiled since 1996. Jerk gets his car crushed. This story happened about 15 years ago. Cast. We've got me, female, 5'11". We've got Bob, friend, store manager. We've got Chief, my boss. We've got Entitled Jerk, the one who lost his car. Okay, background. I worked as a firefighter as an investigator for an independent department. I was the rank of lieutenant and was based out of a large station. 2 engines, 1 newer 110 tower ladder truck, relative later, 1 chief car, and 1 utility truck. Every day, the food duties changed from firefighter to firefighter. My chief's turn to cook when this happened. My friend Bob worked as a GM of a small grocery store. There was a long empty space in front of the store marked with the following sign: emergency vehicles only. Enter Entitled Jerk. He had a nice-looking BMW and always parked in the above spot every week. Bob told Entitled Jerk that he couldn't park there. I can park wherever I want. I make more money in a day than you make in a week. My friend calls me complaining about Entitled Jerk. I agree to go and watch the spot. I get into our utility truck, which had the department decals on the door and a single red light on the dash. I park in the emergency vehicles only spot. As I'm walking in, I hear, "You can't park there. That's my special spot." I turn and look at Entitled Jerk. "Excuse me?" I ask. "I'm on official duties and can park there." I pointed to the decal on the door. Entitled Jerk looks and says, "You ain't no firefighter. Move your truck and leave now." Now, I'm proud of my job. In a department of 2,000, I was 1 out of the 5 women on the department. I graduated top in my class. I have a shocked-looking expression on my face. I get really upset. I walk into my friend's office to get more information about his problem with Entitled Jerk, as Bob explains the continuous parking violations, and I see a small notice on the fire suppression system, sprinklers, that said the inspection was coming up. I smile as I get an idea. Cue the revenge. I get some information, leave Bob's office, and get into the truck heading back to the station. I arrive and I head into my chief's office. I tell him about Entitled Jerk and what he said and does. Chief is 6'6". He's 320 pounds and he's Samoan. He sees everyone as family. Chief's face gets bright red. I explained my idea and he gets very happy. He rushes out and calls a station meeting. I lay out my idea. We send out the station to do a fire drill and inspection by sending the old truck and one engine to the store. My friend will call the station the next time Entitled Jerk parks in the fire lane. Skip to 2 weeks later. Bob calls the station stating that Entitled Jerk had just parked. As I'm thanking him, I hear his fire alarm go off. I rush and change into my investigator uniform with turnout gear, tell Chief and send the trucks out. I ride in the Quint. We arrive and I see Entitled Jerk's car right in the emergency vehicle spot. I radio to have one engine to pull right in front of Entitled Jerk's car and the truck to pull right beside the driver's side door. I get out and the engineer starts setting up the ladder, which means 4 very large and heavy support struts go down and one crushes the front of his hood. His alarm goes off. The lineman breaks his windows as he runs the large 5-inch draft line from the pump to the standpipes, the fire access to the sprinkler system, through his front seats. I go in to find Bob hurriedly getting people out as the alarm is going off. Entitled Jerk runs out of the store, sees his car, and goes ballistic. I radio the PD dispatch and request a few officers to the store, as I had a male impeding a fire operation. The dispatcher says they will send a few officers. 3 officers show up and I ask them to follow me. They do when I call out, "Hey, leave my firefighters alone." Entitled Jerk turns and sees me. He rushes up screaming that I'll pay for damaging his precious baby, his car. I stop him and tell him that if he didn't leave, that he would be arrested. He gets in my face. "You did this. I'll have your job for this." He then turns, pushing me back. The officers and I rush and tackle Entitled Jerk to the ground. After they cuff him, I calmly inform Entitled Jerk that he was under arrest for assault and interference with a fire investigation and that his car would be towed for parking in a fire lane. I later found out that it was crushed. Entitled Jerk got 12 months probation for pushing me and interfering with a fire operation. He also got a fine of $500 for parking, the cost of the tow, and he lost his nice BMW. Moral of the story: don't park where you shouldn't or bad things will happen. Hearing aids are not earbuds. This happened a few years ago, around the time I was 17. I had just started working at a small cafe run by a well-known family in our area. I knew some people who had worked there before, and they told me for the most part the owners were great, very chill and laid back when it was slow, and normally weren't bad about breathing down the employees' necks. Their oldest daughter, who also helped run everything, was the one who was very peculiar, and we'll call her Karen. I'm officially diagnosed with a hearing deficiency. Not bad enough to be considered deaf, but more than hard of hearing, so I wear hearing aids. My first day before we opened, my coworkers asked me if they could do anything else to help me out, and we eventually started talking about the hearing aids in general. While talking about everything, I mentioned they had Bluetooth capabilities, so I could play music through them. Not that I would, but I could. Karen had been in the room at the time and said, "You can't wear those. No earbud policy," and tapped on the policies paper on the wall. I protested, explaining that they're hearing aids and not earbuds, and that I wouldn't be using them to listen to any music while I was working. Her reasoning was I didn't need them because I wasn't considered fully deaf, and I was doing this to get around the no earbud policy, directly quoting when I said they could play music. "I can't wear them? Okay, let's see how this goes." I placed them into the case in my bag and started my shift. I couldn't understand my trainer, couldn't hear the customers, couldn't hear when orders were called to be sent out. Things were going extremely slow. A couple of warm pastries burnt since I wasn't able to hear the timers. Simple sentences had to be repeated multiple times with people basically yelling at me just for me to be able to piece a few words together. I guess the cherry on top was me ignoring one of the owners when she tried speaking to me. Karen came up to me and tried addressing me about it until she finally realized what was going on after she had repeated herself 5 times. By the end of that shift, I was allowed to wear my hearing aids, no questions asked. Am I the jerk for cutting his allowance and canceling my stepson's trip? I, 35 female, am married to Jane, 37 female, and she has a son from another marriage, Connor, who's 14. They moved in with me, and Connor spends weekends with his dad. Jane decided to take a 1-year sabbatical after an exhausting year. She was a hospital nurse, and maybe start again at another job after that period. We agreed that I would shoulder the expenses as it wouldn't be a financial burden on me, So I took over the things Jane paid for, like school, household expenses, and giving Connor an allowance. Connor and I don't have the best relationship, even though I've known him since he was 7. He still has the idea in his head that I was the reason for his parents' separation. He put the coin that I wasn't his mother, and that's why I didn't have to educate him. But he started to respect me more after I became the only income in the house. So, I got home from work and Connor was sitting in the living room with his friends playing games. When he saw me, he came and said, "Give me $50 to go out with my friends." Didn't ask, just demanded. When I started asking what this money was for, he started saying I wasn't his mother. So I told him to at least be polite and ask. He asked this time and I gave. I hadn't even gone that far when I heard him say to his friends, "It's a pain in the butt to depend on that jerk for that." I came back, demanded the money back, and said we would talk later. I talked to Jane about what happened, and she gave me the go-ahead to decide what I would do. We both sat him down, and I said that I would no longer pay him an allowance to go out with his friends. I would continue to pay for his lunch at school. And because of the disrespect he did, I would not pay for the trip he would take with the class that I hadn't paid for yet. He even tried to play the fact that I'm not his mother, but Jane stayed by my side. After all, it wasn't the first time he had mistreated me, and if he really wanted to go, ask his father. He left angry, calling me various things, and ended up telling his father, who started going off on me for doing this to him. He can't afford the trip. Lots of other things not worth mentioning. Connor isn't talking to me. I'm not cutting back on what I promised my wife. I'm cutting back on the treats she gave, and I didn't care to pay until I wasn't respected. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. As you say, his father can pony up the money for him. He doesn't deserve any extras when he treats you this poorly. I'm glad Jane is on your side in this. He needs to learn some respect, but I don't expect this to happen. I would wonder if his father contributes to his poor attitude towards you and your wife. Am I the jerk for getting mad that I wasn't invited to my ex-wife's wedding? My ex-wife and I were together for 7 years, and we have 2 daughters together, ages 5 and 3. Shortly after the birth of our 3-year-old, we broke up in kind of a civil manner. A few months after our breakup, she met her current fiancé and they started dating. Once our divorce was finalized a year after that, they got engaged. Overall, due to the fact that I'm the father of the 2 kids that I have with her, and I've been in her family for 7 years, I have a pretty great relationship with her family, and I still get invited to family gatherings. I can tell my ex is not too happy about it, but she sucks it up for the sake of the kids in her family. Now they're planning their wedding for some time, and they just gave out invites. I wasn't included. Our daughters were, but I wasn't. I contacted her family, mainly her sisters and her mom, and I expressed how upset I am that I'm excluded from the wedding, and I'm even more upset that they didn't do something about it. They say that it's not up to them, and it's the couple's decision, and they wish they had me there, but they don't want to upset my wife by going against her wishes. Later, my ex called me and lost it on me for calling her family to complain and asked me why I feel entitled to an invite to her wedding. I told her that I still feel like part of the family, and it's weird that I'm invited to all these family gatherings but excluded from this one, and I think we can be civil and supportive towards each other. I also feel like it will be a good thing for our kids to see us being so supportive, and me being in the wedding sends a good message. We are still co-parenting after all, and we have a decent kind of relationship despite our breakup, and I don't see a reason to be excluded since I'm still a big part of her life since we share 2 kids. She said I'm very entitled for this and that it's ridiculous how I got mad, and that I, as an ex, was not invited to the wedding and that she doesn't owe me that. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You say yourself that your ex-wife isn't happy you're included in her family gatherings. Of course you're not invited to her wedding. You're being weird calling her family and complaining about it. Honestly, when you and your partner break up, you lose generally their family as well. Suck it up, Buttercup. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Straight facts, you aren't part of the family and are owed no invite. Your daughters are also her daughters, so naturally they get to take part. Perhaps it's time to reflect on the fact that your ex-wife has moved on, and perhaps you should too. Are you still going to spend time with her family when you meet a partner of your own? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex-wife? Please let us know. Bruh. I let a restaurant fail on a busy night, and it kickstarted my career. This was when I was 18. I'm 34 now. So 2004 to 2005. Think pre-iPhone, but cell phones like the Nokia 3310 exist, which I had one because my parents wanted to make sure I always could be contacted. I worked at a bar chain restaurant for 6 months. Let's call it C. It was a completely new store. When we opened, we were the only building for 8 blocks, except for the sister restaurant next door that was part of the same investment group as C. It was a decent upper-middle-class white neighborhood, so we'd get lots of people in the door. I was originally hired as to-go, but I was trained up in almost everything in the restaurant, and I frequently filled shifts, and I got most hours for it. It was the worst job I ever had, and still is. After getting shifted around to different homes, to-go, QA, host, sometimes server, I eventually ended up in bus, cleaning tables. They promised they would move me off of bus once we had bussers, but as we'll find out later, that day never came. The main reason this happened is that we ran out of bussers. They tried hiring bussers at a rapid rate, but it didn't work. The average survival rate for a busser was 2 weeks, including training time. Eventually, our reputation of chewing out bussers made its rounds. No one would even show up for interviews for the job. See, at C, a pecking order had been established. At the top, you had the managers, then it was the servers, then it was the bar servers, restaurant servers, etc. Guess who was at the bottom? That's right, bussers. Anytime I spoke up about how people needed to pre-bus their tables, people scoffed and said I should just do my job. I explained how I could clear an entire restaurant by myself if everyone pre-bussed their tables. 30 seconds per table versus 8 minutes per table. Deaf ears. So I have to explain why there's a huge time differential between a pre-bus table and a total bus table. If the servers took every plate off the table, even if the table was grody, I could wipe it into my bucket, clean up a few things, wipe off the seat, reset the center of the table, and move on to the next table. I'd be in and out in about 30 seconds and on to the next table. However, if I had to totally bus a table, I'd have to take all of the plates and organize everything on the tab. Time varied depending on the number of people at the table. 2 minutes for a 2-top, 4 to 5 minutes for a 4-top, etc. If a table had ordered lots of drinks, multiple fajitas, each fajita meal contained less than 6 dishes, and or had been particularly unsanitary about their eating practices, unruly kids usually, you could add up to 3 minutes per table. This also compounds that I had to go back to the kitchen and sort through all of the plates, cups, etc. Well, 2 months into my "we're going to move you off of busing once we find bussers," it's a busy Saturday night. I'm talking 1 hour wait at 6:30 p.m. Half the tables are currently dirty and I'm working my butt off, but each table takes about 5 minutes because no one is pre-bussing tables. I'm told the priority is the restaurant, so I had to tell the bar waiters that they probably wouldn't be bussed at all because it would be so busy. They were not having that, and the on-shift assistant manager told me that I should do my job, but I should still prioritize the restaurant, not the bar. Whatever. I'm constantly telling servers to pre-bus their tables, only to be ignored. It was a particularly bad night, so I asked if the dishwashers could help me out when I brought back my tabs instead of organizing everything myself. They were nice, so they agreed, and it was a decent system. Cut out 2 to 3 minutes per table. It was still pretty hectic, with lots of people wanting food. It still didn't help that I had to go back to the kitchen every time there was a full bus table. Enter Karen, queen of the bar server jerks. Remember that pecking order I mentioned? Yeah, she was the queen of the server order. She was one of the ones that constantly berated me for my job performance, despite the fact that I did more than almost anyone else in the restaurant. She made my last 2 months a living heck, constantly telling me that I didn't do a good job, that she had to wait for me for too long, etc. I constantly told the assistant managers and manager about the disrespect I received, and they said I should just man up. She never got a single write-up. One particularly busy Saturday night, Karen was a server in the bar side, which meant she wasn't in the priority. I told her that I couldn't bus her tables unless she pre-bussed them, and only if there weren't restaurant tables I needed to bus. She was constantly telling me I needed to bus her tables and I was lazy, despite the fact that I had lifted over 300 tabs that night. She wasn't the priority. She didn't pre-bus any of her tables, and she was always on the back dock smoking. Once that night, a nice couple saw me working in the table behind them and politely asked if they could talk to their server so they could take their order. They had left them alone for 15 minutes while she was smoking on the back dock and flirting with one of the prep cooks. She scoffed when I interrupted her flirting. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. I'm sorry I interrupted your 6th flirting break today so that you can do the thing you were hired to do. About 6:30 p.m. that night, the restaurant got flooded with people. 1 hour waits, and I had to push it to the limit. I was flipping tables, despite absolutely zero of the servers pre-bussing. However, since the restaurant was the priority, I couldn't get to her tables at all. Finally, we got a dip. I could finally get to her 3 tables, and all of them aren't pre-bussed. So I have to do the full bussing for her tables, despite they have been vacant for almost 45 minutes. After the first table, she follows me back to the second table and tells me I need to hurry and I'm garbage at my job and I'm making her lose money. I tell her to leave me alone and don't reprimand me in the front of the house. It was embarrassing, with bar patrons looking over their shoulder, and I could see they honestly felt sorry for me. I was at the lowest point in my life at this time. I honestly felt like I was the worst human being in the world. Once she left, I stopped bussing for a second and sat down at a table for a second. I looked at the dirty half-full tab and I got up. The table wasn't finished and I left my dirty tab on the seat. I went to the back and to go. It wasn't active, and this was before widespread internet. We got maybe 15 orders per night, so the managers had relegated to-go duties to the QA that serviced the rest of the restaurant. It was easily accessible for them, but it was also vacant at that point in time. Call-in to-go was a relatively new and novel concept. I put down my headset, turned it off, pulled out a to-go pad, and wrote a full note, noting how this restaurant is going to go down the toilet unless the managers get courage and reprimand the staff for treating bussers like crap. I then left without telling anyone. I was called on my cell phone about 5 minutes into my drive home, and the assistant manager told me, "OP, you still have a shift." My response was, "No, I don't. I quit." Their response, "OP, you still have a shift." Again, my response is, "No, I don't need to be disrespected like I have. I quit." She had the gall to repeat herself, "OP, you still have a shift." I hung up and turned off my phone. It turned out that I left just in time for the dinner rush. Saturdays, we closed at midnight, so for those last 4 hours, it was heck in a handbasket. I was told that the assistant manager prevented anyone from going home until 2 a.m. because the restaurant was basically a trash basket by the end. Wait times at 10 p.m. were capped because they were well over 2 hours. Host told me later on that she had to turn away 40 families that night because everything went to heck. Some people just left while waiting for a table. Others were getting misplaced. This information made it up to corporate, and they had to call in a fixer team to figure out what happened. They wanted to call me, but I wasn't going to talk to them. There was some restructuring in the business. The manager got shifted to another position in the company. The assistant manager that called on staff was let go. Karen rode up, relegated to the crappy shifts, and eventually left. I didn't return for 2 months, but not as an employee, but a customer. I was told all this by one of the remaining assistant managers, the one that actually treated me like a human being, and he gave me all of my tip shares, which was nice. The next best part of this, the day after I left C, my best friend found an ad that a huge game maker was looking for QAs. We applied that day, and the following week I got interviewed and hired on the spot. He didn't make it. It was the beginning of my programming career. I advanced through that job, got over to automation programming, then got hired on at other companies. Now, I'm a senior programmer for a sheriff's office with 14 years of programming experience. I called the police on my neighbor after she keyed my car because of the books that I write. I'm a single woman in my early 30s, making my living writing and self-publishing fiction novels. The genre I write has a majority of the plot being steamy, so I typically don't tell people what I write, but I do tell them I write books for a living under a pen name. And if you're questioning my writing abilities, I have an editor to correct my mistakes. I'm not hiding it per se, but I'm not telling everyone I meet what I do for a living, and none of my neighbors knew, only a bunch of friends. I live in a house alone. Pretty much all of my neighbors are either young families or retired couples. My next door neighbor is a young couple. We've been polite to each other, but haven't been close or anything. Lately, the husband, let's call him Roger, became very friendly towards me, which I tried to ignore, but he's been getting too flirty for my liking, and I started to avoid him. They had a barbecue over the bank holiday weekend, and I was taking rubbish out to put in my bin. Roger looked at me, waved hi, and whispered something to his friend, and they both watched me very carefully, which was incredibly creepy. On my way through my garden, I saw Roger's wife, Dahlia. leaving the house with her friend, and they both looked at me with disgust and whispered something to each other. It was weird, and I hurried back inside. The next morning, I found some religious leaflets put through my letterbox. They were just printed on normal printer paper and warning about sinful behavior and going to heck, etc. Threw them away, but kept finding similar leaflets put through my letterbox for the next week. Since I'm working from home, I decided to see who's leaving these leaflets, and to my surprise, it was Dahlia. I decided to confront her and ask her to stop putting religious leaflets through my door. Despite me being polite, she was not happy. She told me that I should rethink my life because what I write is disgusting. It's pretty vanilla. And she found her husband secretly reading it at night. She kept going on and on how I'm going to heck, how I have no morals, etc. Well, I told her to stay away from me and discuss this with her husband, and I closed the door in her face. Don't know who, but someone told them what I do for a living. A day later, I found an insult painted on my door. A few days later, I caught her keying my car. She was almost done with another insult. Well, I called the police on her, and since I installed cameras after this incident. She's been taken to court over keying my car. I talked to my other neighbor. She asked about the police, about it, and she told me that I went overboard, that Dahlia was clearly insecure, but she's a lovely woman and a great mother, and I should have talked to her instead of calling the police and given her a chance to change her behavior. Am I the jerk for calling the police and not giving Dahlia a chance? If she's keying your car and painting rude names on your door, she is not a lovely woman. Just because she doesn't like what you write doesn't give her the right to destroy your property. It appears that the behavior was escalating, so getting the police involved was necessary. Not the jerk. Exactly. She had so many opportunities to stop, but instead Dahlia chose to gossip, shame, push her beliefs. She was asked to stop and instead escalated further by keying the car not once, but twice. She deserves every bit of punishment she gets. She invaded your space, damaged your property, and made you feel unsafe in your own home. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her neighbor? Please let us know.
Maybe neighbor should read those books too. Find out how to give hubby what he's really after.
Am I the jerk for saying I'm not going to take care of my pregnant girlfriend's baby when he's born? I met my girlfriend several months ago. On our, fourth date, she told me that she was pregnant from her ex. I've been told by friends and family that I should have left at that point, but I was really dumb and really desperate at that time because it was my first relationship, so I wasn't really thinking and I went along with the relationship with her. I loved her. She was like a perfect match for me and other stuff. However, it wasn't until this month that things started to be a big problem. My girlfriend started talking to me about paying for some baby stuff and what her expectation was for me once the baby was born. We originally had an agreement that it was only going to be her and her ex. He's still around, he's not a deadbeat, that would be taking care of the baby. However, she told me recently that her ex was out of a job and doesn't even have a car and is tight on money. So she expects me to help pay for the stuff that she needs, like diapers, baby clothes, and whatever. I said, forget that. I did not agree to that. I might change a diaper a couple of times or feed him once or twice, but I'm not going to be fully taking care of him. What on earth? Especially not spending money on baby stuff. Like, I barely have money myself. I'm 19 years old, by the way. She got mad because I said I wasn't going to help her buy baby things and help her take care of the baby after he's born. This was a big argument that lasted for a long time. Am I the jerk here? I'm going to probably go against the grain here, but I'm going with not the jerk. As a single mom, I don't expect anyone to step up and care for my kid. That's mine and her father's job. I welcome positive male role models in her life, and if they want to do extra for her, then I'm extremely grateful for those actions. But I absolutely do not expect them to fund any part of her life or take on a parent role. Yep, not the jerk. OP, she may have really liked you, but she was also looking for someone to take her deadbeat ex's place. And yes, he is a deadbeat, no matter what he says he's going to do. When the baby is born, your girlfriend will stop being available to you and will be full-time taking care of a newborn baby. If you stick around, you will be pulled into sharing responsibility. And as soon as you've established a pattern of taking responsibility for the kid, you can, in some states in the US, not sure where you are, be made legally responsible for child support even if you leave. You're going to essentially lose your girlfriend to her baby, and you're going to risk being sucked into child support for life if you stick around. Do both of you a favor and get out of her life. You're the jerk. Look, if you ain't man enough to be a father to that baby, then quit wasting this girl's time. You make it very clear that you only want her for one reason, and that reason is not to help her with anything important in her life. I've dealt with plenty of guys like you until I finally found the right one who didn't mind that I have 4 kids with different dads. My new man provides for all of us because he is a real man who makes real money. He also agreed to not marry me on paper so that I can stay getting my benefits for me and my kids. He even doesn't mind me getting with some of my exes now and then because he is secure in our relationship. I know he ain't happy about it, but he knows it's important to me, so he doesn't try to stop me. He respects my strong independence and never tries to mansplain anything to me. Let this girl go so she can find a real man, 'cause boy, you ain't cutting it.
Well, don't you sound like quite the catch?
Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
If OP doesn't want to be a stepdad, I hope he doesn't try to stay with her.
Won't replace a brand new broken lawnmower, but will let me return and reorder? Okay. So I bought a riding lawnmower a few years ago from a big home store. I paid for delivery, and upon said delivery, it didn't start. The delivery truck had left by the time I had gotten gas in it and figured this out, so I called the store. I explained that my brand new, just delivered today lawnmower was not starting, and immediately the person on the phone asked me if I purchased the extended warranty. I hadn't, so they told me that it would cost $100 to have them come get the lawnmower, and then however much more the repairs were. Mind you, it was brand new. In my mind, they should bring me a new one to replace the one that didn't work upon delivery. No matter how much I argued, this worker was sticking to their story. I quickly changed my tactic and asked what the return policy was. As long as a return was initiated within 30 days, I could have a full refund, including the cost of delivery, and the store would come pick up the lawnmower for me at no additional cost. So I pointed out that the store wouldn't replace my non-working item by taking one trip to my house to pick up the non-working one and bring me one that worked, and instead would make 2 trips to pick up the one that didn't work and then bring me the new one I purchased the second time as a totally different transaction. The worker said yes, and when I tried to point out how that made no sense, he didn't want to hear it. So right then and there, I initiated a refund. I then immediately ordered a new one and had him set up the delivery date. After that date was set, we had to schedule the date for pickup of the old mower, and I made myself unavailable for any date other than the delivery date for the new one. So even though he had insisted they wouldn't just bring me a replacement mower and pick up the first one, they were now doing just that, but with the additional paperwork of processing a return and additional paperwork for delivery of the new mower. The manager called me later that day to apologize for the hassle, and they ended up waiving my delivery fee. I worked at a Lowe's in customer service. It's atrocious, but I can confirm that this type of crap is common. Most systems aren't set up to process what you need done. We literally had to return and then sell a new one to set up delivery. Quite often, we'd set up an exchange with a delivery and then just swap out the items. Odds are that person was never trained for an exchange sale. 90% of the store I worked at wasn't trained on doing one. Heck, a good 90% weren't trained to do a return at all. Am I the jerk for deciding to separate our finances just because my wife refused to buy a pair of earrings for my daughter? My wife and I have one daughter from a previous marriage each. Mine is called Penn, she's 15, and hers is Amy, she's 17. We've been married for 10 years now. Our finances are joint because we don't care for money. She makes $70,000 to $80,000 and I make $180K to $200K per year. She's in charge of our finances. My wife has the weird fixation on having the kids earn their stuff, and while I agree, both of our daughters are well-behaved, good students, and kind, I don't see why they have to earn every single thing daily. For example, if my daughter is working in the kitchen at night and goes to sleep without putting her laptop away because she'll work again in the morning, then my wife decides that she can't eat anything sweet that day. I voiced, with better words, that I find it stupid. Same goes for her daughter. She's prone to forget things easily, and if she doesn't remember to put this or that thing away, my wife removes her phone or tablet. Yesterday was my day off, and I stayed back home resting while my wife and our kids went out to buy my mother-in-law a Mother's Day gift. Around 5 p.m., my daughter came to my room and said that my wife bought Amy a necklace, and when she asked for a pair of earrings she loved, my wife refused because the night before she stayed up until late watching Netflix when she knows she's not supposed to. This isn't the first time my wife refuses to buy my daughter things, and honestly, it boils my blood. My daughter is a really good kid. I work hard to make sure my family has every or most of the things they want just for my wife to tell them no because they are kids being kids. When my wife came into our room, I was honest. I said that her rule was utterly stupid and I was done putting up with that. That I don't particularly like her buying one thing for her daughter while the other had nothing, and that until she accepts to attend therapy with me and fix the problem, our money will be taken care of separately, and the joint account will be for the house and emergency matters only. This means she now has to pay half of the utilities and some other things. She didn't like it because her money will be cut short, and implied I was financially mistreating her by doing this over a pair of earrings. She went to her parents, and my father-in-law called me soon after. He said I was a jerk and that it was my obligation to provide for my family. ETA, I might not have explained myself. I'm still paying most of our joint expenses, like 60 to 70%, but before this, my wife kept almost all her money to herself and only put toward the emergency fund we set. Still, I put a bigger amount. She's not happy about us separating our finances because this means she has to contribute to the house now, and she'll have less money for her daughter's college fund and her fun. ETA 2, thanks for all your replies and comments. I'll try to read all of them and we'll be answering some. I also want to thank you for all of your advice. My wife still refuses to do therapy, and as some of you said, this will be my hill to die on. If she doesn't agree by next Wednesday, I'm sure we will divorce. Someone also asked for our ages. I'm 36, male, and she's 45, female. Not the jerk. Mainly because you offered couples therapy as a way to work on the problem. Also because your wife isn't disciplining your respective daughters, she's just being mean. Everybody in the world forgets things, even your wife. A gentle reminder is sufficient for that. Watching Netflix too late? Yeah, find me a teenager who doesn't. She's just picking on them. I did notice too that you stated you would still put enough in the joint account to cover the bills and household expenses. So no, you're not financially mistreating anyone. Keep trying for therapy. Your kids need help. OP. Yes, I've seen a few people confused by that, but I will only withdraw my money for things like fun money, and I'll put only for our house, kids, and emergency expenses. I meant she had to put more because before this, she didn't really do it. Of course, even with this, I'll still pay for most of this because I have the bigger income and it's only fair. Am I the jerk for wearing a matching workout set to my stepdaughter's college graduation? My stepdaughter graduated college, so my husband, myself, and our kids, the ones we have together, travel to watch the ceremonies, take her to dinner, give her gifts, and spend time with her since she will be all over during the summer with her friends and mom's side before she starts grad school in the fall. We had to fly in to see her, so I was wearing a comfy matching workout set in her school colors to celebrate on the flight and had a dress and heels in my carry-on to change into before the ceremony. Unfortunately, we had a delayed flight and things were very hectic and we barely got there in time for the graduation, and our kids wanted to stop and pick out flowers for her. My young son got very sick, and with all the chaos and taking care of the kids and getting there with the traffic, I never ended up changing because it completely slipped my mind and I have zero idea how. I think I was just very exhausted. My stepdaughter was very upset and was very warm to her dad and half-siblings, but was cold with me. I asked her privately what was wrong, and she told me she was furious with how disrespectful I was with my clothing. People were dressed kind of casually because the big ceremony was outdoors in the football stadium, and that she wanted nice pictures with everyone dressed up. She said if she were my real kid, I would have never done what I had done. She also told her dad that I was banned from future events of hers because she knows I will be a terrible person and wear sweatpants to her wedding. I apologized and tried to explain what had happened and that I was very proud of her and was very sorry she felt like an afterthought. I told her we could all dress up for dinner and take better pictures, but she was angry at my suggestion. She has not spoken to me and has not spoken to my husband since. He apologized but tried to defend me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I can clearly see that I was a jerk. Workout clothes are my everyday clothes and I feel really stupid. I will work to make it up to my stepdaughter. Whoa, you are super forever the jerk. I call BS you didn't forget. When I started reading, I expected you to say your luggage was lost. That would have been a valid excuse. Nothing you said was a valid excuse. What is wrong with you? It would have been better not to bring flowers if it meant you could have worn something nicer. It would have been better for you to walk in late so you could have changed rather than wear what you were wearing. Why were you wearing workout clothing when you weren't working out? Because it's comfy? If you're honest, comfort is not the reason you chose that outfit. Your stepdaughter was an afterthought, and don't pretend otherwise. You're the jerk, I hope she cuts you off. And her dad is the jerk for allowing you to dress that way on a day that was intended to celebrate what is a very important milestone achievement. Am I the jerk for calling my baby daddy's wife an idiot? My baby daddy, Luca, 34, male, and I, 23, female, have a 1-year-old daughter named Ivy. I'm not proud to admit it, but I was the other woman. Luca was one of my friend's professors. I met him when my friend was showing her work at an art gallery hosted by him, and I was mesmerized. We began to hook up soon after. It took me 6 months to find out about Juliet, 29, female, his then girlfriend, now wife. I was the one who told her everything, and she has despised me ever since. I don't blame her though. I found out I was pregnant 2 months after we broke up. I have a really strong support system, and my family was okay with helping me, so I decided to keep my daughter. I told Luca and Juliet, who decided to forgive him, and Luca said that it was my decision, but Juliet went off, saying that I couldn't have her, that this was a mistake, a sin, and that I had already ruined her life enough. My friends called me the jerk for keeping Ivy, but she was blameless, and I don't regret it. Fast forward to now. My daughter is 1, and Luca and Juliet are now married. I gave Luca the choice to be out of Ivy's life because I thought I owed Juliet that much, but he refused, and my daughter loves him so much. She also loves Juliet, and luckily, Juliet loves her too. I'm grateful for that, and I'm okay with Juliet forming a bond with my daughter because she's her stepmom and will be part of her life. The problem is that, now that they're married, she has demanded a lot of things. First, she wants more custody time. We have 70-30 because Luca has been traveling for work. She wants to take Ivy for a full week instead of 2 to 3 days. She also wants to take Ivy to France to meet her family, and she wants to be able to make decisions for her with us. With all of this, I was okay. I truly was. But then she said she wanted Ivy to call her Mama, since I'm Mom/Mommy, and wants to rotate Mother's Day. I thought she was bluffing, so I said, haha, you're an idiot. No, without thinking. She took great offense in this, and I said I won't teach my daughter to call her Mama, and if she wants to do it, she has to decide it herself since she's not her mom, and I'm very much in the picture, and I'll always be. I said I won't rotate Mother's Day either, at least not until a few years, because this is my baby. She stormed out after calling me a name, and I called Luca as soon as it happened. He thinks I should just indulge her, that she deserves it for what we did to her. But I said that I didn't do anything. I didn't even know she existed, and when I found out, I cut him off, and that my daughter is not a coin that'll be used to pay every wronging she feels. Am I really the jerk? ETA, since a lot of people are commenting this, I have a lawyer. Everything is set through a lawyer, and she was simply demanding things, so we could take it to legal means. I won't. I've had a lawyer since day one after Luca agreed to be in Ivy's life. Our custody agreement is a legal one. Not the jerk. You didn't do anything to her. Baby daddy played you both and now wants to use your daughter as a pawn to keep his wife happy. Gross. As soon as they have a kid of their own, they're going to ghost OP and her daughter so fast. OP needs to protect her kids starting right now. OP. Juliet doesn't want any kids. Luca had a vasectomy after Ivy was born. He had a vasectomy, but she's trying to steal your kid? Weird. OP. She doesn't believe in blended families because her own stepmother was a monster. She's really good with Ivy and loves her. Her only problem is me. You should talk to a lawyer then, because if they aren't going to have a kid of their own, then it's more likely they're going to try and get custody of your daughter and get you out of the picture. OP. We actually have a legal custody agreement. That's why I said 70-30. That's what the court chose. And a few other things, like if we want to take Ivy out of the city, state, or country, we both need written permission from the other parent, as well as a handwritten full disclosure of what's intended to do in the trip. Say, I want to take her to the beach. I have to explain what's the plan with this. Thus, because Juliet feared I would take Ivy away from Luca, so she backfired herself. Everything that happens between us is sent to my lawyer immediately, and since I live with my boyfriend now, he has cameras inside his house because it got broken into twice. So this conversation is recorded so she can't twist it in court. I'm really taking care of my sweet pea. Am I the jerk for telling my parents' friends the real reason why I disowned them? Some background. I, 22 male, used to think I was an only child because I didn't know my father's side of the family. My father is from Dresden in Germany. My mom is Latina. Well, I knew about them but never actually visited them. Since we live in another country, it was only phone calls until last year when I visited Mina Oma, grandma, that I found out something terrible. To summarize, my dad was married and they had 4 kids when he met my mom. My mom knew he was married, so my dad ended up divorcing his wife because my mom got pregnant and disowned his kids. My dad didn't pay child support and didn't see them again. I was disgusted by this because I never knew about it. My parents were fervent Catholics. They don't believe in divorce. And my dad was world's #1 dad, and I always thought my mom was different, but she's just a homewrecker. So this was shocking, and I ended up disowning them. It's been almost a year. They constantly text me to let me know they miss me and wish they could see me again, but I just ignore them. I have a relationship with his kids, and they've told me that my dad has reached out to them to make amends, but they just refuse. Here's the thing. I used to be religious, by force, but not anymore. My parents go to church and actively participate in every activity. They even attend a group of married couples every Thursday, and they are friends with this older couple who are some kind of role models in the church community. We'll call them K and J. K and J showed up at my house 2 weeks ago because God told them to get me back to the right way. I'm sure my parents asked them to come because after they left, my parents texted me to ask if they came. So they started lecturing me about the importance of obeying and honoring our parents because we obey and honor God, that I should fulfill my duties, etc., among many other things. I was tired and didn't want to deal with them. So I said, okay, tell my parents that if they want me back, they can come and face the issue for once in their lives, and before you keep trying to convince me to go back to them, you should know that the reason why I disowned them is that my dad is a cheater who abandoned 4 kids in another country and didn't bother to support in any way, and my mom is a homewrecker who knowingly made her way into a marriage. Their faces went white and they left. I haven't heard from them, but my cousin says that my parents haven't had it easy. She says that no one in the church talks to them and excluded them from activity this week. Tell me, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This is a roller coaster. Your mom sucks, your dad sucks. Thank God you are so mature to call them out on their BS. I also commend you on your maturity to reach out to your half-siblings and not hold a grudge against them. You are a gem of a person. Entitled mom books the ice rink the wrong day and expects us to share. Background. I'm an adult figure skater and I practice in a big group of other adults. There are skaters going from beginners up to former elite skaters. During lockdown, the public rink we usually skate in has been closed, and occasionally we have rented a private rink for an hour to skate. It's a lot more expensive than our ordinary practice, but you gotta do what you have to. Also, it's incredibly hard to get these time slots since the demand is high. Skating is a safe sport, no worries. We are 8 people on the whole ice and change outside. It is all correct by our laws. A few months ago, we had rented the ice and arrived at our time. Since we are responsible and change outside, we couldn't see what was happening inside. Once I and one of the other skaters were ready to go on the ice, we headed inside, and by the rink side, we find about 10 parents and something like 15 to 20 kids, ages 3 to 6. One of the moms, entitled mom, approached me with a worried expression. Karen, are you the ones that rented the ice? Me, yes. Entitled mom, you see, we were just informed that we booked the wrong day. Apparently, we booked next week this time, but we are here today. Me, I'm sorry to hear. What a bummer. Karen looks at me and the other skater. Is it just the 2 of you? The others are still tying their skates outside, and only the 2 of us had come inside. Me, no, we are a whole group. Can't we just split the ice in half? No. We're not here to joy skate. We're practicing seriously. For several reasons. The first and foremost, it is incredibly dangerous. If I run into your kid, they will get hurt, and I risk hurting myself too. But I mean, it's your kid. Do you want them to get hurt? I would never, ever let my non-existent kids on the ice during a serious practice. Secondly, we rent the rink to be able to practice freely. Half the rink makes it impossible to practice your program. Third, kids usually drag a lot of mud onto the ice, either on their coveralls or the parents on their shoes when they walk to the ice to help them when they fall. Dirt and mud is a big no-no for skates. It'll wear them out quickly, and we'll have to pay for resharpening. Okay, here I kind of felt sorry for them. We all mess up sometimes and it sucks. Can't be fun to reschedule an event like this, and I get that. It's what happens next that makes this story entitled. The mom goes to the other parents, and I hear her saying silently, I guess you could come next week if that fits you. She then goes to the kids, points to us, and says loudly, These people don't want you to skate. They want it all for themselves. With a super accusing tone, like we personally were responsible for her mistake. I ignore her and step onto the ice together with the other skater. This commotion already cost us a few minutes of our short time. I see one more from our group enter the rink, and entitled mom speaks to her too. I can't hear it though. This woman later confirms to me that entitled mom tried the same trick on her, guilting her into letting them share the ice, and then asked if the kids, now all out of their skates, could at least walk on the ice to touch it. Since they're all wearing shoes and mud rule still applies, my friend declines. Also, when the ice is newly resurfaced, it is crazy slippery and very hard to walk on. Big risk of falling and hurting oneself. The rest of our group arrives and we start warming up. Half a minute later, Karen opens the gate and lets two of the kids run straight onto the ice. I wave at her to get them back off the ice and she waits purposely before telling them to come back, only they don't listen. She lets them slide around however much they want. Eventually, she has to walk out on her muddy shoes to pick them up and go back. Not a sorry, no nothing. Not the worst entitlement, but it still boils my blood, especially how she tries to blame us in front of the kids. Kids are usually very fond of looking at us skating since it looks cool, and when we skate publicly, we often show off whatever they want to see or teach them something. I hate to be accused of being the bad guy. Keep stealing my lunch? I'll put something special in it for you. I attended first grade at a super conservative private school. I'm only 5 days older than the cutoff for being in kindergarten, so I'm the smallest kid in class, smaller than even all of the girls. My parents thought about waiting a year to send me, but I'm told I was super smart and bored at home, which pretty much condemned me to never having a chance to compete for most sports teams. More good background info. I was born when my parents were teenagers. My parents got married to do the right thing, but because of that, my dad works a factory job and money is super tight. I'm pretty sure in retrospect that my grandparents were paying for the private school tuition. We lived in what would be considered a rough neighborhood, and they didn't want me in the public schools. All of my clothes came from garage sales. I'm the stereotype of the kid who gets picked on in school. Little, poor, poorly dressed, nerdy. Despite that fact, most of the kids in my class were actually very nice to me. Like any school though, there were a couple of little jerk bullies, even at 6 years old. The ringleader is Charlie. Charlie is big. Charlie is dumb. Charlie picks on me all the time at recess and during lunch. Lunch is in our classroom at our desks, but our normal teacher gets break time and some ancient old lady comes in to supervise. She never notices anything. Charlie has like every transformer ever. I have 2 GoBots. Charlie pushes me down at recess. He teases me relentlessly. He has a toady or two, and they're smart enough to not tease me when teachers are looking. Charlie makes my life sort of miserable. The one time I told on him, I got some BS from the teacher on the playground about turning the other cheek, and the bullying just got worse. A few months into the school year, Charlie starts taking and eating things from my lunch. At this point in time, my favorite food in the entire world is spicy beef sticks, like a Slim Jim. Mom gets them from the little grocery store and butcher up on the corner. I know treats like that are a financial sacrifice for the family, but Mom loves me and puts one in my lunch every day. Charlie learns he likes beef sticks too and starts taking just that out of my lunch. Finally, one day, I tell my mom I don't want beef sticks in my lunch anymore. I can't tell her I'm being picked on, but she sees through me. Grilling ensues. I cry like a baby and tell her everything. I don't want her buying them so that jerk can just take them and eat them. At this point, most parents would call the school or Charlie's parents. My mom had to grow up quickly when I came along, and in some ways, she just stopped growing up altogether. No way in heck she's going to call the school. Get in the car, drive to the store, pet food aisle. These will do nicely. Mom has a plan. We replace the beef sticks in my lunch with dog treats. Don't tell Charlie what he's eating. Not on the first day. Not on the second day. Act normal, act upset. Wait until he's eaten almost all of them. Day 1, it worked. Day 2, keep eating the horsey goodness, Charlie. Like a week goes by. Finally, it's Friday. Today is the day. I put the bag of dog treats in my desk and made sure Charlie doesn't see it. Lunch rolls around. I wait until Charlie steals my beef stick and goes back to his desk. I wait until he's chewing on it. I pull the bag out of my desk and show everyone. I point and yell, "Charlie's eating dog treats!" The plan goes off perfectly, like it's Mission Impossible. Charlie spits the half-eaten dog treat out on the desk and starts gagging now like he's going to throw up. Some of the other boys start barking at him. The entire class is yelling and laughing and barking. Charlie gets up, crying, and runs out of the classroom. The old lady lunch monitor has no clue what just happened. She's only concerned some kid just ran out of the classroom and heads off to find him. The rest of us finish eating and go off to recess. I'm like a hero. I share the details of my heroic plan with other kids. No sign of Charlie all recess. Back to class, teacher returns, math or something. Vice principal comes in. The disciplinarian, the guy with a wooden paddle on the wall who'll get you for acting up. I have to go to his office. I'm about to burst out crying already. I'm so scared. My mom is already there. Charlie is sitting in a chair crying. Charlie's mom is there. It looked like he had thrown up on himself. Moms go into the office with the vice principal. Lots of yelling. I figure I'm done for. Mom comes out, tells me to go back to class. Charlie's mom comes out and tells him he's grounded for stealing and picking on me. Then she tells my mom it will never happen again. From then on, Charlie is nice. Super nice. He even invites me to his birthday party. I gave him a GoBot. Karen demands I pay her rent because she's pregnant and quit her job. I'm 18, female, and my brother, who's 21, and his girlfriend, who are 20, are currently living with my parents, who are 40 and 46. She moved in after my brother revealed that she was pregnant, and that he wanted her to live with us in case something were to happen, since he doesn't have his own place, and neither does she. She is not a good person. She's extremely manipulative, and she's bipolar. I've had problems with her in the past because I've caught her wearing my clothes, using my skincare and makeup, and just overall invading my privacy, as well as my younger brother's, who's 17. I've brought this up to my parents, and they took it with a grain of salt, so I began to dislike her more and more as she continued to cause problems for me and my brothers. Anyways, she's 4 weeks pregnant, and she's already milking it. She'll whine to my brother about her pregnancy cravings, how much her stomach hurts, how tired she is, how she needs a bigger bed to sleep in. They sleep on a twin-sized bed in the living room, and a bunch of other BS. She also brought up quitting her job due to feeling sick all the time, and my parents opposed this since she wouldn't be able to pay rent. Fast forward a few days later, and she quits anyways, and she doesn't have rent money, and neither does my brother since his payday wasn't for another week or so. So they come up to my room and ask for $200 to pay their rent. I tell them no, and she goes on this rant about how sick she feels and how much pain she's in because of the baby, and that she would have the money if she weren't forced to quit. I explode on her and tell her that I don't give a hoot that she's pregnant, a few weeks pregnant at that, and that she'll just be using it as an excuse to leech off my parents and my brother. We get into a screaming match, which results in her crying and my brother calling me a heartless jerk, and they run and tell my parents about how mean I was being to her. My parents are on my side, and they told her that I'm right about her being lazy and that they are not allowed to ask me or my younger brother for rent in the future. But they thought that I took it overboard by saying that I didn't care that she was pregnant and for calling her a leech. Her and my older brother are ignoring me now, and they said that if I don't apologize for what I said, then they are going to continue to not speak to me, and they're going to keep the baby away from me once she gives birth. I'm not sure if I should apologize. I want to be in the baby's life, but I simply do not feel sorry for anything I said. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. No need to apologize. She is a leech, and you don't have to care about her being pregnant. Poor baby, if there really is one. Plus, if OP doesn't apologize, they won't speak to her, aka ask for more money, and will keep the baby away, aka not try to force her into free babysitting. Sounds like a win-win to me, not the jerk. Oh no, a lazy mother is going to keep her newborn away from me. Whatever will I do? Not the jerk. And for your sake, I hope they keep the baby away from you. With 2 brothers and you being the sister, they will do almost anything to get free childcare from you. Lock down your stuff and your information. Protect yourself from identity theft because they will take loans in your name. Have a conversation with your brother, friend, or a parent in earshot about identity theft and how you would 100% prosecute to the fullest extent. These people are users, and in the words of my grandmother, people will feed you crap as long as you eat it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her brother and his girlfriend? Please let us know.
Them cutting contact with you sounds like a win for you. Never apologize.
Am I the jerk for having a lights-out wedding, even though my in-laws-to-be aren't happy about it? I, 27 female, am the daughter of the most amazing parents that ever did amaze. No, they're not perfect, but they've literally done everything they could in their lives to make sure I was happy to the best of their ability. They are also both blind. Being raised by blind parents wasn't without its challenges, but we always found solutions or compromises. But the one thing that was often a point of contention, especially when I was a teenager, was clothing and fashion. My parents have their own way of being fashionable, and rather than appearance, it's fabric and feel. This has resulted in them having a very eclectic sense of fashion, but I honestly love it. I admit that I hated it as a teenager, as I had no say over my own wardrobe purchases, but I realized after I moved out that I really did prefer to feel comfortable in my clothes over how I looked in them. Took many stupid expensive clothing purchases to realize this, but I digress. Nothing is mismatched anymore, but I have a super cozy wardrobe. With the wedding planning in full swing, my fiancé asked me if I was going to be okay with the photos. He did not mean this maliciously. It just didn't occur to him that I was originally planning to buy them clothing to wear. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wouldn't a fabric wedding be special? Essentially, the whole wedding will be in the dark. I was inspired by a restaurant I saw in a movie. I realized that I don't want to dress my parents. I want them to be comfortable and to enjoy our wedding the way they experience it. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I want to experience this special day as they would too. My fiancé, honest to God, does not care. In his mind, the moment I said yes, I became his wife. I love him. To avoid accidents, we're going to be using glow stick lighting, and everyone will be provided free bracelets and necklaces. They light up enough to not crash into each other, but not so much as to light up the room. We're also hiring event staff with night vision for this equipment too. When we announced, most of the family was supportive. My family goes without saying. Fiancé's family is iffy. His brother loves the idea and is going to come in a velvet suit, a la Austin Powers. Honestly, it's his parents that are really against it. We had a huge fight over it when they argued that it's not fair to punish the guests because my parents are blind. The reason I think I may be the jerk is because the part of his family that is siding with his parents are vowing to boycott if we don't have lights. My husband just thinks it's their loss and that his parents will attend, even if begrudgingly. But I know it would hurt his relationship with them, and I don't want to do that. It's not that this is a hill I'm willing to die on, but it's my wedding, and this would be really special to me. In quotations, because my husband has told me he'd marry me in the Walmart if that's what I wanted. He just wants to marry me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I feel like I keep seeing these points brought up, so I'd like to address them. 1. We've hired a wedding planner whose literal job is to make sure this event runs smoothly and safely. They are literally being paid to factor in any contingency to ensure the safest experience. 2. There will literally be staff wearing night vision goggles monitoring every table to ensure everyone's safety, and so that if anyone needs help or guidance, they will provide it. Be it for serving food, to escorting other guests. There were 200 invites sent out, and 121 have RSVP'd yes. Each table is set to seat 6, so at this time we're paying for 20 extra hands to cover the tables for 121 guests. This isn't counting our table or the exits. 3. I've heard a lot of people imply that glow bracelets and glow necklaces won't be enough. Having been to many nightclubs and raves in my teens and early 20s, I can promise you that 121 wearing these is enough to see with, and the staff will manage the rest concerning tripping hazards and directions. 4. A lot of "you're the jerks" are making very valid points, and I'm discussing them with my fiancé. I'm also making a list of strong points to go over with my planner tomorrow. But for those people whose only argument is that they wouldn't be comfortable not being able to see, that's literally the point. You're not supposed to see. If someone came in a giant furry Sully from Monsters, Inc. costume, I'd be thrilled when I ran into them. The wedding isn't going to be focused on visually enjoying the experience. It's about hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling it. I know for a fact that enjoyment isn't dependent on sight. Okay, cool concept, sounds great on paper, but in reality, someone is going to get hurt. Someone is going to fall or miss a step, or run into someone else and they will fall. Glow sticks are not enough. You can't see people's feet with glow sticks. What if someone chokes on food and no one can see them? Choking people aren't loud and their airway is blocked. What about parents with kids? They will lose the kid in minutes. What about people who have allergies? They cannot see what they are eating. I think there are better ways to honor your parents. Maybe have a select time that the lights will go out, or a toast or something. You're the jerk. This is a bad idea. Edit. The point is to be uncomfortable. You are a jerk for that. You can have a wedding that honors your mom and dad without making other people uncomfortable. Really think about this. It will be dark, and there's a real chance of some sort of assault since no one will be able to see. It would take one person to make it a nightmare for everyone. Oh, look, I just got grabbed. Oh goodness, just think if one of the servers was a creep. I have night glasses and everyone else is blind. Heck, it would be so easy for someone to steal from the other guest. It's pitch black. Servers will not be able to know whose stuff belongs to who. Someone could start grabbing purses and leave. I'm not even going to mention people who have anxiety or fears of the dark, since I'm sure this would be a nightmare for them. Edit 2. I've really been thinking about this. Think of the people who get surprised easily. They will either flee, fight, or freeze. If someone startles and they are a fighter, then you're going to have someone panic and boom, now we have someone injured due to a punch or something. Anyone that panics and is loud, shots or whatnot, yeah, that will be fun. Or just think if there were an actual emergency. People already panic during those, but now you are adding that they are in the dark. Not to mention the legal liability if an older person falls and breaks their hip, especially if they live in America, because OP would most likely be liable for their medical bills and hip surgery can cost thousands, even with insurance. Not the jerk. Do what you want, but I think you could have a little more empathy for where his parents are coming from. Your parents have been adapting to navigating the world blind their whole lives. For people who are used to sight, being thrust into a crowded situation where they can barely see could be incredibly uncomfortable and even a bit scary, glow sticks notwithstanding. What about guests who have anxiety issues? Guests with mobility issues where the lack of sight could lead to an injury? Guests who are hard of hearing who really don't need another barrier to their functioning? If you're going to do your wedding this way, you need to accept that people who aren't comfortable aren't going to come. So if the darkness is more important than your in-laws' presence, so be it. But they're not jerks for finding it upsetting. Edit. You're the jerk. Sorry, can't let my original judgment stand after seeing your responses and edits. You are obnoxious. You made it sound like you cared a little about whether you were being a jerk or insensitive to others, but it's clear you don't care at all. All you care about is your special idea and slamming it forward no matter what anyone else says. It sounds like your parents spoiled you and you found a similarly passive fiance who won't stand up to you. So the idea that your quirky little idea isn't amazing is just unfathomable to you. None of the plans you're making really account for any of the issues. A wedding planner can only do so much. Servers can only do so much. People are going to be moving around and dancing for more than you're accounting for. Your example of a place with adequate vision for all is a rave? Would you bring your elderly grandma to a rave? And yes, I've been to raves. You don't care that this idea is actually crappy to people with disabilities, including your parents, who could very well get hurt when people are stumbling around in the crowd. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for wanting to have a lights-out wedding or not? Please let us know.
Oh, I can't wait to read the comments we get about this one.
I canceled our Mother's Day celebration after hearing what my wife told my son. I, male 37, have a 13-year-old son. I was a widower when I met my now wife. She has a 16-year-old daughter from another relationship. The family is often on pretty good terms. My son is the quiet one in the house. He keeps to himself a lot, but not to the point of being concerning. My wife and stepdaughter are the complete opposite. They both encourage him to be outgoing and share activities and join gatherings with extended family. My son complained about having to be forced out of his comfort zone and having his need for space invalidated. I spoke to both my wife and stepdaughter and asked them to give space and freedom to spend his time however he wanted. They apologized and promised to let him be. As Mother's Day was approaching, I wanted to throw my wife a surprise Mother's Day celebration. It was no longer a surprise because my stepdaughter gave her the heads up so she could prepare. Yesterday, I got off work earlier than usual to get final arrangements done. We planned to celebrate at the restaurant and invited her family there. I had the key, and while I was entering the house through the front door, I overheard my wife and stepdaughter talking to my son. My wife was asking my son if he could convince me to let him stay home and not go with them to the restaurant to celebrate. I paused and decided to keep listening. My son asked why, and she told him that his introverted and socially inept attitude will make her family uncomfortable and will ruin the mood. He promised her that he'd be well behaved and would try to interact and socialize with everyone, but she said that she wasn't buying it. He kept reassuring her, but she snapped and told him that technically she's not his mom, so she didn't get why he wanted to celebrate Mother's Day with her so badly. My stepdaughter threw some, I don't remember, backhanded comment, and then both of them were shocked to see me standing there. Both were staring without saying anything. I told my son and his stepsister to go to their rooms. Then I told my wife that the celebration was off, canceled. She tried to argue, asking why repeatedly, and I told her why. She tried to explain that she didn't mean it like that, and that I only heard part of the conversation, but not all of it. I told her I was done arguing, and the decision was already made. She yelled, asking what she was going to tell her family, and said that I was making tremendous mistakes towards her. I ignored her while she kept throwing a tantrum after tantrum. Early this morning, she took my stepdaughter and went to stay with her folks. Not a single call or text from her so far. Situation is full of tension. I'm upset still, but more hurt to be honest. I mean, yes, I did say I was going to have this celebration, but I thought that what she said to my son was too harsh to ignore. Not the jerk. Guarantee they have done this before. Circle the wagons, protect your son. Such disgusting treatment from your wife upon your son. To make it even worse, she's raising her daughter to be cruel and exclusionary. Your son deserves so much better. OP. From the looks of it, I'm afraid they have, especially my wife. I know her, she can be harsh sometimes. Harsh is an understatement. She's a bully. Your son will grow to resent you if you don't do something about this. I have several siblings. My stepmom was just like this. Of my siblings, only 2 of us have a relationship with my father. OP, fix this crap. Not the jerk. OP, it's highly unlikely this is the first time either of them has been this nasty to him. You are all he has in this world. Please hire a really good shark of a divorce lawyer and divorce this woman ASAP. You need to protect your son and yourself. Edit. Change the locks and text her to tell her to stay with her parents. Malicious compliance to malicious compliance. I run a repair shop where I employ a bunch of local kids, ages 16 plus, to learn skills and make some money while we generally sit around and talk about the world while we fix things. We had a client come in with a busted electronic. We fixed it up for her and gave her a decent discount on the work. Her final bill for parts and 4 hours of labor was $100 even, discounted down from $220. She didn't like the bill. She didn't like the work. She claimed that we'd broken something else. She claimed that the kid who did the work didn't know what she was doing. She did, and I had supervised her. And that the kid who helped her in the front room was rude to her. He wasn't. She demanded to see the manager, so I popped out, listened to her tear into my employees, validated how she was feeling, but pointed out that the work she had asked for was done correctly, and her bill was due on pickup of the piece. The last straw for her came when she pulled out a credit card, and I had to inform her that we don't accept that particular card. She literally asked me, "Do you know who I am?" Which I didn't, still don't care, and I told her we'd take a personal check. She wrote out a check, problem solved. I deposited the day's checks and got a note from my bank that one had bounced. Her check, of course. I called her the next day to inform her that her check had been returned for insufficient funds and that she'd need to come in and pay her bill, plus the extra fee for a return check. All of these fees, just to point out, were clearly outlined on the service agreement she had signed, and we'd already discounted her $120 just to be nice. Anyway, then she rolls into the office carrying a bag, and I knew exactly what was going on. She drops, of course, a bag of pennies on the front desk. She's breathing heavily. We're on the second floor, and she'd taken the stairs, and she announces triumphantly that she's here to pay her bill. She just needs to go get the rest of our hard-earned money, said with a sneer, of course. The kid at the front desk looks like he's about to cry, so I stop working on the thing I'm working on and take over. "How many more bags do you have?" I ask her, and she says that the nice people at the bank loaded them up in her car. She didn't count them. I told her that was fine. We'd wait for her to bring them all up and then settle up her bill. She was expecting a bigger reaction, I think. Either that or she hadn't thought this through. 10,000 pennies, plus the extra $25 weighs a lot, and she just committed to carrying them through a parking lot and up a flight of stairs. One of my kids, bless his heart, offered to help her carry them. She refused. Finally, shaking and sweaty, she deposited the last of the bags on the countertop. The pennies were loose, not in coin rolls. She had done some work to prove her point. What she hadn't counted on was that we'd need to count the pennies. While the other kids took care of the other clients and fixed things in the back, the front desk guy and I counted up the pennies. She started to realize that this was going to take a while and tried to leave. I told her that she couldn't leave until we had signed off on her bill, since at this point she was in violation of her service agreement and had passed a bad check. We couldn't just take her word for it, and I would inform our local authorities if she left without paying. I was kinda just talking, but she managed to tick me off a little. The other clients in the shop came and went, and we counted. Phone calls came in and were handled by the kids, and we counted. She sat in a chair, folding steel, not super comfortable, stood up again, walked around the office, and we counted. After a while, she just said, "Just forget it," and took out $125 in bills. We signed off on her agreement and she started to leave. Another one of my kids, bless his heart, asked her if she wanted help carrying these pennies back to her car. She looked at all of us with a face of sheer panic, mumbled, "No thank you, just keep them," and bolted. The whole shop wasn't silent for a moment. Then one of the kids started giggling and nobody could stop. People coming in thought we had gone nuts, and I finally had to banish everyone to the back room until they could breathe again. We loaded the bags into my vehicle. We used the elevator she had walked by a few times, took them to the bank, and used the coin machine to deposit them, then wrote out a donation to our local shelter for the amount she had dropped off. She posted something nasty on Facebook about it and got ratioed. She had, of course, posted earlier about what she was going to do, and she got called out with her own post. My favorite response was something like, "You said you were going to pay your bill in pennies. You paid your bill in pennies. What went wrong?" Please don't pay your bill in pennies, folks, especially if you're just doing it to be a jerk. Ma'am, I'm a lifeguard, not your babysitter. So there was a small incident at my pool a few years back in the summer of 2014, one of the first years I'd worked there as a lifeguard. It's nothing as grandiose as some of the other encounters people on here have had, but I figured I could share it here. For background, it's a small HOA pool that struggles to staff people to the point where there's only one lifeguard on duty at a time, if we're even that lucky. The pay isn't terrible, and you only have to work 4.5 hours for a shift, but you also get to deal with some entitled folks now and then, so you win some, you lose some, I guess. There's a section in the rules that specifically states that unless a kid is 16 or over, they must have a parent or guardian at the pool with them. I've never had to enforce that until that day. A woman, our entitled parent of the day, came in with her 5-year-old, set the kid down, and went to leave. Now, as we require people to bring passes so we know that they're part of the neighborhood, as well as to make sure that they're not part of the list of people barred from the entrance due to being behind on payments or other disputes, I called out to her and politely asked her if she had her passes. She stops, has a slightly annoyed look on her face, and before walking back around the pool to give me the kid's pass, and then goes to leave again. I then ask if she has her pass or an ID on her, and she continues walking off to the exit, presumably not having heard me. I ask the kid to stay and I go after her, letting her know that she has to present a pool pass or photo ID if she wants to stay. It's at this point that she tells me, very rudely I might add, that she isn't staying. She has some things she needs to do and will be back in an hour, and would I just watch her kid? I reply, as calmly as I can, that I cannot allow her kid to be at the pool without supervision.
"You're here, aren't you? Just do your job and watch her then,"
was the entitled mother's response. To which I replied, "My job is an associate of Walmart and a lifeguard here, ma'am, not a babysitter. If you'd like my services as one, my fee is $25 an hour, but otherwise, I will need you to either stay here and give me your pool pass or driver's license, the other form of ID we take if someone doesn't have their pass on them, or pay the $2 guest pass fee, or take your kid and leave." Apparently, my attitude did not please her because she took offense and demanded to speak to the person in charge. I probably shouldn't have done this, but I just said that she was speaking to them, being the only person on duty at the time, and later this would be true, as I would become the head lifeguard the very next year. However, if she wished to speak to the head of the pool committee, I would be more than happy to give them a call, which she said I should do, along with several words and adjectives that should not have been said around her kid, as she told me that she was going to report me for my attitude to her and for not doing my job. I went over to the phone and called my boss and let him know the situation before handing the phone to the woman. I could hear what was said, but it was clear he asked what had been said because she repeated my comment verbatim. All I heard after she finished was my boss's laughter. Needless to say, the poor kid did not get to go to the pool that day, and that's the only thing I regret about all of this. This isn't the only entitled person/parent story I have from my time working as a lifeguard, and I hope I can share more soon. Am I the jerk for not wanting my husband's friend to stay for the weekend? I'm 24, female. My husband, who's 26, has a friend who's 25. Let's call him A. A has been having some problems with his wife. We'll call her B, she's 22. To be honest, they don't seem like they're gonna last, but they're both trying to resolve the issues. They do not want to jump straight to divorce. For context, I'm 10 weeks pregnant with twins. A's wife is 24 weeks pregnant with a single baby. A's wife has had a very easy pregnancy while I have been extremely sick. I've been hospitalized twice, and I'm on the strongest medication I can be. I'm surviving, but barely. A and B have 2 kids already, who are 6 and 5, who will be coming with A if he comes to stay. They also have 4 dogs. My husband and I have not had any support from A and B at all while I've been in the hospital. Barely even a text, most days, yet B expects me to text every day, and if I don't, she will grow increasingly aggravated with me, saying I don't care about her or her kids. B works an extremely flexible job, around 2 to 3 days a week. I am, at the moment, working 7 days a week to get my business up and running before maternity leave. Bad timing? Yes, but my husband and me are making it work for the sake of the twins. Enough context, onto the issue at hand. I texted B this morning, and she said that as we are supposed to be their friends, we should have A stay for the weekend to allow them some time to breathe and take some space. I felt like I couldn't say no, as B was saying I had always hated A, and that if I was being truthful and not hating A, I would open up my home to him and help them save their marriage. The thing is, I'm exhausted. I wanted a couple of evenings with my husband to relax and to just sleep, to be honest. But I know that him coming to stay means a weekend of them going out and partying, leaving me to do all the housework, take sole charge of the kids, and be responsible for the dogs, etc. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. But B persisted that if I loved their kids and wanted them to grow up with 2 parents who are together, I would let A come and stay. B would not relent, saying I would be responsible for their breakup, that A would think I hate him and God knows what will happen if he's left alone this weekend, and that if I said no, she would tell all of our mutual friends that I wanted them to break up. My husband has said it would look bad if I turned around and said no now, that it would make it seem like I do hate him, and that we really should have him stay. So now I'm facing a weekend of work, sole childcare, becoming a doggy daycare, and taking care of 2 hungover grown men, all while trying to keep my head above water with regard to the sickness and exhaustion that comes from the first trimester, let alone with twins. I know that so many people have it way worse, that some women are single mothers and have to cope with all of this alone, but I'm exhausted. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to have my husband's friend stay with us for the weekend? Update. Wow, I'm a bit blown away by how many people have agreed with me here. I went to see my husband on his lunch break and showed him this post. His reaction was unexpected. He sobbed. He admitted that he knew it was a jerk move to say yes to them coming, but he had been so scared by everything that had happened in the last few weeks that he wanted to feel normal. So we're going to go and stay with his parents for the weekend to be looked after by them, to be spoiled a little, like we both need. My husband's then booking me into a spa with a friend for a couple of days, but definitely not B. We're still torn about what to do regarding A and B and our friendship with them, but we're going to be turning our phones off this weekend to get some thinking room. Huge not the jerk. It's a crying shame that your husband doesn't have your back on this. Couples counseling is strongly advised. No, I don't work here, but that doesn't mean I can let you do that. So, a few months ago, I got back into law enforcement, where I'm now part of a specialized tactical unit. Most of the time, we're not in standard uniform. Instead, often we're in slacks, blue polos, and black tactical vests with the initials of our department on the front. See where this is going? I probably also should mention that I'm also wearing a fairly noticeable belt with my sidearm, radio, cuffs, all the normal cop stuff. So this morning, I'm in the local location for a big box store with a very similar uniform. I had been in the Lego aisle, which at this location backs up to the electronics section, so that it's Legos on one side and video games and glassy display cases with cheap locks that are easy to pick on the other. So I'm standing there considering getting something for a friend in another state who I may be seeing next month when a young woman walks up to me and asks if I work here. I point to the lettering on the front of my vest and politely tell her no. She apologizes and thanks me and walks down the aisle a bit. I finally decide not to get anything for my friend and turn to head out when I notice she's in the process of picking the lock on the display case, which pops off before I can even ask what she's doing. At this point, she sees me and waves before grabbing a handful of $100 games out of the case and shoving them under her shirt and starts heading for the front of the store. I decide to leave my cart and follow her. Lo and behold, she walks right past the registers and through the security scanners, which light up and start wailing. She starts walking faster, heading towards her car. I catch up to her just as she's trying to open it. I detain her and read her rights while the store manager and theft prevention officer catch up. We head back into the store where I radio for a patrol car while the manager takes care of pulling videos and getting the paperwork in order. The whole time, this lady is just sitting there and quiet, so I ask her what the heck was going through her head. Her reasoning was,
I didn't think you could arrest me while you were shopping.
am I the jerk for ordering an expensive meal with friends who always insist on splitting the bill? I, 24 female, get dinner every week or two with my friend group. For whatever reason, all three of them are super pro splitting the bill evenly 4 ways instead of simply paying for what they order. This wouldn't be an issue, but I usually get a salad for my main course because ordering most other things gives me a stomachache, and I don't drink and I don't really like soda, so I usually just get a glass of water or a bottle of San Pellegrino if I'm feeling crazy. My friends, on the other hand, usually order expensive drinks, expensive courses like seafood and steak, and even get appetizers, which I don't eat. So when we split the bill, it comes out to at least $150 at least every time. I almost never contribute more than $20 to the bill, sometimes even only like $15 total. My friends always insist that we split the bill, which I find extremely annoying because I should be paying significantly less. However, whenever I try to pay for only what I ordered, they all call me a cheapskate and say they won't go out to eat with me if I keep being cheap. Last night when we went out, I decided to be petty. I ordered a total of 3 glasses of their most expensive wine, some sort of fancy charcuterie board for the appetizer, and the most expensive item on the entire menu, which was some sort of steak. I even ordered a slice of tiramisu for dessert. My dinner alone ended up being $150. We split the bill once again, but I could tell they were irritated. This morning, I woke up to a block of text in our group chat, basically saying that he was upset, and they knew I was doing what I did to upset them. My other 2 friends agreed with him. I feel kind of bad, but I also feel like what I did is only fair, because they do the reverse to me all the time. Am I the jerk? Edit. I just realized I should mention that I do just fine financially, and that the extra money I spend because of the bill splitting doesn't impact me in any significant way. Not the jerk, but why are you friends with these people? They sound awful. Tell them via text that you did exactly what they always do to you and to buzz off. Not the jerk. However, if you have a problem with this, then why do you keep going? OP. These dinners are always a great time for me. The only thing I don't like about them is paying the bill. Totally fair. But at what point is it too much? I for sure think you need to have a conversation with them and say you'd feel more comfortable paying your own way, but you love them and still want to come. Suspicious neighbor threatens to call the cops on me for just moving my TV. I'm 33, male. There's a community center/hall in my neighborhood run by the HOA that residents can rent, which my wife and I rented last Saturday for a Mother's Day party. I have a big family with quite a few aunts and cousins with kids. It made sense to rent the hall since we like to do these big get-togethers sometimes. The hall is about 1/4 of a mile from my house, or maybe a little less. I brought my 65-inch TV to the hall and I set it up on a table to display a slideshow of all the moms and their kids, which ran throughout the party, which I drove over in my SUV. Our event went pretty well. Most people left around 8 p.m. A few of my cousins and I stayed behind until 9 p.m. to clean up before going home. I didn't want to pack the TV back into the car since it was precarious and almost tipped over when I brought it to the hall, so I decided to just carry it home. As I was walking back, I hear a "Hey!" from a door, and I see one of my neighbors. She looked to be in her 50s. I briefly pause and look at her with the TV held above my head and just say, "Hi," back to her. She asked,
Who does that TV belong to?
I was tired from hosting a party all day, and even more tired from walking a 1/4 mile while holding a TV. I was not really in the mood to keep talking to this lady. I didn't respond to her and kept walking home. I could hear her shouting at me and saying she was going to call the police. I ignored all of it the entire walk back. I got home and put the TV down, got changed, and had some water before I told my wife what just happened. My wife told me I was being a jerk, paraphrasing, because I could have just humored the lady for 1 second, and that I probably looked more suspicious than I realized. She thinks we're likely going to have to deal with that neighbor again in the future. I got into a little argument with my wife because I don't think I owed that lady any sort of explanation, and my wife thinks I should have just preserved the peace. Am I the jerk? This situation is ridiculous. Like, imagine if it weren't yours. Did she expect you to be like, "Well, it sure isn't mine. You got me." Obviously, her question is useless. She's just harassing you in your own neighborhood. And what was her game plan? Was she gonna come wrestle you for it? She's gonna call the cops because a person is moving a TV? Was she not gonna call the cops if you just said, "Yeah, it's totally mine"? I don't believe that's true at all. Ugh, not the jerk. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have stopped and explained that it belonged to you, or just kept walking? Please let us know.
I would have told her it was her mom's TV, then let one rip.
Parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party to accommodate my spoiled younger brother. I'm 20, male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled. And he used that to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that weren't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away, which was a lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him, even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him the entire time of my 13th birthday, and even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she had noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out the candles. And because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents set me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and then they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. And all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people. But that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was canceled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse, because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents to other kids in my school, called them up or sent them Facebook messages, basically saying, "What's wrong with you?" And suddenly, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it, and my brother thought it was hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. but I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day just to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PS4 game I'd been wanting at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he could have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely and took my little brother to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play place tube structure. And he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, then tried to run back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I didn't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party. And they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me at all and not my brother was still fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that and had a huge fit until my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they had raised my brother so spoiled because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental on our parents for not getting him a PS5. He's now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds, or maybe even thousands, in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me that they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. It took that many people calling them out before they did something? The relatives chastising them wasn't enough? It had to take a whole school and a small community? Dang. I fear the one day that your brother will be in jail. Am I the jerk for unintentionally sending my coworker into a state of anaphylactic shock? I'm at a loss here, guys. Realistically, I know I'm in the clear. Legally, I'm in the clear. But I'm being vilified by my coworkers, and I'm genuinely considering quitting my job because of this mess. So I work a pretty standard day job, and at night I help my friend at her restaurant, which serves an assortment of Thai cuisine. To be honest, I'm insanely picky, but I fell in love with this peanut sauce the main chef makes, and he showed me how to make it. So about once a week, I take it on either noodles or stir-fry to my day job for lunch. People know this, and a handful have tried it. It smells nutty, it tastes nutty. It's white girl pad thai, basically. Lately, my lunches have been disappearing, or I'll open my lunchbox to find half of my food missing. I've tried addressing it, but nothing has been changing, and I was pretty sure it was one of the new hires that was doing it, but had no proof until now. Thursday, I took my noodles, and my entire Tupperware was missing, which hasn't happened before. I'm upset, but what can I do? A coworker shared her pizza with me, and that was that, until today. My boss confronted me and accused me of doing something to my noodles because his daughter, one of the new girls, borrowed my lunch and had to be hospitalized. Turns out she's severely allergic to nuts, ate some, and boom, anaphylaxis. She used an EpiPen, had to be hospitalized, and now her dad is trying to hold me accountable for her bills and condition. But I don't see it. Why should I pay? I didn't mark my food as an allergen because I'm not allergic to it. She was just dumb enough to steal from me and eat something she can't have. But he's being hateful, and some of my older coworkers are icing me out because I warned him I'd report any harassment to HR if he tried anything funny. My friend is aware and offered me a full-time job, but I just can't help but feel it's unfair. At the same time, his daughter could have been hurt, so am I the jerk? I did email the HR rep, and I let her know of the situation. She's been on vacation and gets back tomorrow, so I don't know if she's aware of what's been going on since last week. I should note that I work weekends most weeks, not quite an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday job, but yeah. My coworkers mostly chilled out by the end of my shift, thankfully, after I explained to the nosiest, friendlier person that I always bring a peanut sauce dish. I guess the general assumption was that I somehow found out who had been stealing lunches and decided to do something to it. To answer a common question, this was the first time my pad thai was stolen. And no, I'm not the only victim of the lunch thief. I usually take a late lunch, and I'm not the only one, so I'm guessing the lady who was stealing food decided what was left is a free-for-all. Forget her. My boss said it was an HR issue when I tried talking to him about lunches disappearing, and HR always said they'd look into it, or further into it, and nothing ever happened. We're 100% not allowed to eat at our desks unless you have a medical reason for it, so that wasn't an option either. I'm assuming she's fine, but I don't know the severity of her allergy or how much she ate before she had a reaction. I'm not privy to her medical information. Sorry, guys. Suing sounds like a great revenge, but probably not worth the cost of a lawyer. My friend let me take tonight off to just vent about everything, and I'm probably going to take her job offer. One commenter was right. Even if everything settles down, I don't want to deal with a potentially hostile or reactive workplace like this anymore. It's not a career with much room for upward mobility, and I didn't feel welcome in our group meeting today. And for the people calling this fake, okay, it's not, but even if it were, why are you getting mad about it? Karma doesn't give me anything, monetarily or status. I can't exactly give out a bunch of details unless I want to dox myself, and the post seems rushed because I wrote it out of frustration during my lunch. Short time plus word limit equals rushed. Sorry it didn't meet your writing standards. Anyway, I'll keep reading comments and responding occasionally, but this is it for me unless I get something worth updating. Thanks for everyone's opinions. Edit. Here's the recipe. Red curry paste, smooth natural peanut butter, sugar, dark soy sauce, cider vinegar, water, and coconut milk. I cook it on medium-low heat and add more water if it seems too thick and use regular coconut milk. The low fat isn't good in my opinion. Not the jerk. Go to HR immediately and make them aware of what is going on. You did absolutely nothing wrong and your boss's behavior is 100% inappropriate. OP. Yeah, I'll wait until she gets back tomorrow and report him. Do not wait. Go now. Or at least send an email asking for initiating a formal complaint. Just remember that HR works for the company, not you. Exactly. After contacting HR and putting down a record of the way she's treated, OP should contact an employment attorney. Honestly, with her boss and multiple established coworkers treating her very poorly, there isn't much they can do to correct a hostile work environment. But giving OP a severance package and sending her on her way could be the best option they see for protecting the company, especially if they can jump right into their friend's job. Fire me because I did my job? Okay, hope you don't need all of these supplies. I love taking photos of people, to the point that I have 2 resumes for applying for jobs, and one of them is specifically for photography work. So I was psyched when I got a job in a photo studio. It was a chain, and it wasn't like high-quality work, but it was still awesome. We did a lot of photos of babies in particular. Well, the company had a 3-strike policy. Once there were 3 issues with you, you were gone. They made you sign off on every single one of the reports. It didn't matter how much later it was that you got your next strike. They never went away. Okay, doesn't seem like a great business model, but okay. And being fair, I did get 2 strikes, which were very reasonable. One day I missed work because I forgot to set an alarm. It was a super irregular schedule, and it wasn't always easy to keep track of. The next strike happened because I scheduled a photo shoot for before the beginning of a shift accidentally. The program was supposed to only show you times that an employee would be available for doing photo shoots, and they changed our hours with very little warning. So the photo shoot that I had scheduled the week before that would have been within our hours was no longer. I felt super bad for the mom and daughter who came in early for their photos and helped them sort everything out with a free photo redemption and apology. I still got my second strike for that. Now the last strike. I actually got 2 on the same day. Around Christmas, our store goes nuts. We have to have twice as many people working in order to keep everything in order. During that, I was training a new employee and helping with her photo shoots and my own, running cash and taking passport photos and teaching her the rules for them and this and that. It was a nightmare. What made it worse was that one customer submitted 2 complaints that day about me. See, this customer felt I was pushing her to buy photos. Literally, all this company cares about is pushing the photo packages, and I was instructed relentlessly to do it more and with more energy because I didn't make enough people feel they had to have them. So, great. I convinced a customer to spend money instead of just giving them free things and not getting $1 from them. Like the company was always yelling at me to do. And I got a complaint for that. Great. And then the other complaint was even more ludicrous. The customer felt I was being too bossy with the other photographer. The one that I was training. The one that didn't know how to do the job yet, so I had to tell her how to do things. Apparently, I deserved to be fired for telling her how to do things. I was heartbroken. It's been a few years now, so I've gotten over it, but I was so happy working as a photographer. But here's where the malicious compliance finally kicks in. See, by my nature, I end up doing a lot of work that isn't actually my job because I want to help. I enjoy feeling useful. But they're firing me because they don't want me to sell things or train people like they had told me to do. So for the last 2 weeks of my job, I stopped counting all of the money for deposits. That was the manager's job, even though she hadn't done it in half a year since making me do it. This meant she had to come in on days that she didn't work just to do the deposit. I stopped actively recruiting customers, which is what you're supposed to do in your downtime. Cold call previous customers and prowl around the attached mall for people you can convince to get photos. The best tactic was always to find people with new young ones and tell them how beautiful their baby is. Offer them a free print of one of the photos after a shoot. Almost no one passes that up because then they have a wonderful photo to hold on to. I didn't feel guilty doing it because it genuinely makes people happy. I stopped taking meticulous notes of every interaction that was worth following up on. Used to make a note for the next shift about how X customer had seemed interested but was unconvinced, and that a simple reminder of the offer would probably be enough to get them to buy. Or I would make a note about someone who forgot their passport photos and whether or not they had paid already. And then on my last day, the truest malicious compliance happened. They wanted me gone. Okay, I took my name tag and packed it away. I went into the photo studio and grabbed the kids' toys I had brought in to help get young ones to cooperate. Babies don't really understand a stranger saying smile for the camera, but if you shake a rattle at them and make silly faces, they're very good at smiling for that. I cleaned up all of the things I had laid out neatly for easy preparation and put them back in storage. I cleaned up the counters to get rid of all the notes and passport photos that weren't claimed that day because that was what we were technically supposed to do. And then came the real part that this title refers to. Over my 9 months working there, a number of issues had come up with the things we worked with. For the passport photos, we needed a paper trimmer to slice off the edges quickly and neatly. We had one when I started, and then it broke. I brought in a replacement. It got broken too. Still, we needed one, so I brought in another replacement. We also had gotten our stapler stolen. No worries, I had one at home we could use. And the keys to the storage, the extra receipt paper, the passport paper, where we keep the deposits, where we keep our paper files, they were tiny. And the color of them was so bland that throughout the course of the day, they would get lost easily 30 times. I had brought a large, blue, fluffy keychain to attach to it with permission from the boss. Never lost the keys again, not one of us. We had also had a sign when I started there, which we could pop out, which says, "I'm in a photo shoot. Please be patient. I'll be with you in a moment," or something along those lines. Because there was often only one employee at a time, and they had to do the photo shoots and all of the passport photo drop-ins. Well, my boss accidentally dumped her coffee on that sign after she tripped one day. So I went out of the way to get a new one printed, bought a plastic sleeve for it, and set it up with a cardboard backing so it wouldn't break or get ruined. It was better than the old one. So of course, when I left, I took my sign, my keychains, my paper trimmer, my stapler, my toys, and notably, my shutter button. See, the camera had a shutter button attached that would allow you to move about while snapping photos. Again, helped with the little ones because they don't understand directions, so you have to be able to physically draw their attention somewhere. This cord had gotten frayed and not replaced. It shocked me nasty enough to leave a burn, so I took it off the camera and brought my own in. I got a call the next day asking me how dare I steal the company's supplies. I calmly replied that I had just taken back the items that belonged to me and that they could keep the broken paper trimmer that I had brought in. I even left them a pair of scissors I brought for a backup when the first paper cutter broke. I even brought them a box of paper clips for using since they didn't have a stapler anymore. The store closed down not 2 months later. Crazy how when you fire your hardest worker over things that you told them to do and one missed shift, other employees are less than enthused about the chance of the same things happening, and no one else worked nearly as hard as I did. And for reference, the employee who the customer felt I was treating badly looked at the managers like she was insane and asked when I had done that, because she knew for a fact that the only time I raised my voice at either herself or the only other employee was because it was too loud for them to hear me otherwise. She apologized to me, said that she was worried it was her fault because she had been a little nervous that day because she was dealing with other things and was worried that the customer had gotten the wrong impression because of that. Said employee then went on to have her own gallery show, leaving shortly after I was fired. Edit. People have raised questions about why I worked 2 weeks after being fired. Simply enough, there was no one to cover my shifts. One employee was in China celebrating New Year's with her grandparents. One was working on her own photos, which became her gallery show, and the manager would be very over 40 hours if she worked my shifts too. And I needed the money and wanted to say goodbye to some of the kids and parents who I took photos every month. Relatively common, a lot of them wanted photos of their babies as they grew and changed. Though this has reminded me of one sweet thing they told me, so thanks for questioning all. One of the families said that they wouldn't be rebooking next month because no one else had gotten their kid to take such nice photos. It felt awesome. It's been 6 years, so I had forgotten that. Edit 2. Just another tidbit about the company. They kept every studio temperature the same as corporate. Corporate was in a very different climate area. It was almost always either meltingly hot all summer or freezing cold in the winter. Am I the jerk for taking family photos without my actual mom and stepdad and with friends in costume as them? I was born to a teen mom, and mom had me at 17. She later married my stepdad, and they had my step-siblings, who are 9 and 12 respectively. I'm 18 and in college now. Before Easter, I was at college, and I found out that my mom and stepdad took family photos without me for the cards. My mom said that it was just because she needed them printed in time and I was at college. But college is only 25 minutes away, and I feel like my stepdad is resentful that their family includes some other guy's kid. He also described the photo as of close family, but then backpedaled and said, I just wasn't as close physically because I'm at college. So I decided to play a little joke. I took my younger siblings and 2 of my best friends to the Walmart photo shop, and we took deliberately cheesy family photos, all wearing blue jeans and jean jackets. My friends dressed up as my mom and stepdad. My female friend wore a bald cap to be my stepdad, and my male friend wore a wig and a denim dress to be my mom. My friend is really talented with makeup and honestly did a great job making them look like them. We took a bunch of pictures with props and picked a favorite of us all standing in silly action poses wearing raccoon skin hats. Between the makeup, hair, and big hats, we all agreed my friends looked like my parents when the picture was postcard sized. It was honestly a really fun photo, really different than the serious ones my family always takes. I had it printed on cards and signed them with, Love, our family. I swapped the cards in the envelopes my mom had prepared and resealed them with the sort of stickers she uses. Apparently, a couple of my extended family members didn't look hard enough at the pictures to notice that something was off and just displayed them. But a few people mentioned to my mom that the picture was funny, which upset her because she thought they were talking about her very boring photo of them all sitting on a picnic blanket with a giant Easter basket. Then my aunt sent a photo of the card to the family group chat and said, "This isn't you, is it?" And the gig was up. My mom was furious at me for sending out the joke cards and embarrassing the family, and also for not sending the cards she had made and wrote in. I told her that I didn't get why she was upset about being left out of the family photo. Apparently, it isn't a big deal to be treated like you're not part of the family. She said that I was making a mockery of her and my stepdad by having my friends in the photo instead of them. I said that I just wanted a photo with my close family, just like my stepdad did, and I consider those friends of mine my closest family, because I guess that's just something we can choose now. My mom got so mad at me for sassing her that she told me to leave and I went back to college. Am I the jerk for pulling that stunt with Easter photos? Not the jerk. This is hilarious. I was in the same position as you. I'd watch out about your stepdad. Seems like he's working on turning your mom against you. He started in the same way with me, by leaving me out of family photos when I'd be away at my paternal grandparents' house. Maybe that won't happen to you, but watch your back, and if he ever says anything out of line to you, make sure you keep the receipts. Now at 25, I haven't spoken to my mom in 4 years because she chose her husband over me. I made the mistake of never having caught what kind of things he said to me with tangible proof. Oh God, I feel for you. By the way, you didn't make the mistake of not gathering evidence. Your mother made the mistake of not choosing to prioritize her kid. But OP, you're brilliant for doing this. Maybe do have a serious convo with your mom though, and maybe show her your post, as it does seem like she's being drawn to view you as the problem over the real problem. Her and her husband's alienation of you from the family. Hopefully she takes responsibility for your feelings as a result. You won't stop smoking on your porch at night? Guess we'll burn our house down. Hi all. Just found out why there were a bunch of flashing lights and loud sirens on the street behind mine last night, and I am gobsmacked. The family that used to live in the house behind mine, who ever so helpfully called the police on me after I gave them a friendly heads up about their Wi-Fi, has moved out. A new family has moved in. Our houses are separated by a couple 100 feet and a brush line. I found this out because they came to talk to me last week about my smoking before I go to bed on my porch, and how the smell is terrible and it's bothering them, and I just need to not do that. Note, this is on my screened-in porch, before bed, perhaps 3 to 4 times a week. The likelihood that any of the smoke from that is going anywhere near their house is slim to none. I told the new back neighbors I'll turn his ceiling fan on to thin out the smell, but I'm not going to get eaten alive by bugs just before bed because they don't want me to smoke on my own property. Porch is screened in. I guess this answer didn't satisfy them because last night one of them came up with a cunning plan to get back at me. They dug a hole in their lawn, built a fire with a bunch of green pine woods so it would be extra smoky, started the fire, and then put a big box fan at my porch next to the fire and went inside. Then guess what happened? If you guessed that they set their own house on fire, you would be correct. One of their next door neighbors called 911 because some cinders from the fire set the back neighbor's house on fire. I have no idea how much the fire damaged the house, only that the people who lived there got arrested and given an impressive set of fines for negligence and a bunch of other things. Did I mention my county is under a fire weather warning and all of those fines are multiplied? The juiciest part, and the reason I decided to post on here about it, was one of the cops was talking to the neighbors who were going on and on about the awful smell that I was causing and making the house uninhabitable. Cop sniffs a little bit and tells them, "That's just a skunk." Karen roommate keeps eating my food. I, 18 female, live with a couple, 19 female and 20 male. They're mostly pleasant to be around, but they can't really understand boundaries too well sometimes. Every week, I do a food shop and prepare and freeze down my meals for the week to eat when I get home and while I'm at work because I can't just buy food due to a range of allergies and aversions. My weekly food works out pretty expensive, so I do make a point every week that I genuinely cannot afford for anyone to eat my food. I had to go away for a few days that turned into a week last week, and I figured it'd be fine since my food was frozen down so I didn't have to worry about missing a week's pay, as it was there already for me. I was actually really excited to eat them when I got home because they looked really good. Anyways, I got home this afternoon and went to go heat up my tonight's dinner around 2 hours ago, only to find every bit of it was gone, and the containers weren't even washed right. To say I was upset was an understatement. I'm hungry and annoyed and can't do another shop until Friday, and all I have is spinach and eggs until then. I called both of them into the kitchen and asked them what the heck was going on. She said they had friends over yesterday and that they were too lazy to cook or to order in food. I got really mad and I started shouting everything I listed above at them. They left the house and are staying at a friend's. My friend/neighbor, who had actually heard me shouting at them because our walls are thin, came over and said I'm being unreasonable and a jerk after hearing my side of the story because it's just food. Am I the jerk? Neighbors demand to borrow my car for a long vacation trip. I, female 29, moved to a new neighborhood almost 2 years ago. I live alone, no partner or kids, but my mom, who's 80, does live with me part of the year, 6 to 8 months out of the year. I really like this neighborhood and haven't had any issues until now. It's a very tight-knit community, neighborhood barbecues at least once a month, the kids all play together after school, etc. My next-door neighbors to one side have a severely disabled kid, She's 6, almost 7, and completely nonverbal and wheelchair-bound. They have nurses who help care for her, but I know her parents are struggling, understandably so. Her mom had to quit her job and is a full-time carer for her and their other older child. I've gotten relatively close to them, the parents, and they are lovely neighbors. Their older kid is respectful and honestly one of the sweetest kids in the neighborhood. For my mom, I bought a minivan and I had it customized to have a ramp and wheelchair tie-downs so that I can easily transport her and her mobility equipment, usually in ECV or wheelchair, when she's staying with me. The other 4 to 6 months of the year, when my mom spends time with her sister and friends in our home country, the car sits mostly unused unless I have a reason to move bigger things that won't fit in my daily driver. I noticed that the neighbors didn't have a car suitable for transporting their daughter without taking her out of the wheelchair and fighting to keep all her tubes and wires in place, so I offered them the use of my minivan if I wasn't using it to transport my mom. We've had an agreement in place that has worked well for us for almost 18 months, but now they've asked if they can use the car to go on a road trip. The trip is scheduled to last just over 2 weeks. The main reason for the trip is to take the kids to Disney World for the first time. My problem is that my mom is supposed to arrive in a couple days after they would leave. I asked if they could delay the trip by just a few days so I can at least get her from the airport with minimal stress. They are adamant they leave on the dates they want to, and I said no. I need to be able to comfortably get my mom from the airport, and after a 12-hour flight, I want her to be comfortable and not have to worry about getting in and out of the car. They called me selfish, and I've been ousted by the rest of the community. I wasn't invited to the last barbecue. Nobody says hi or waves back at me on the street anymore. The neighbor kids that come by to see my dogs and run around the yard with them haven't been by in almost 2 weeks. I tried to text the neighbors, but my texts went undelivered, so I think they blocked me. I feel like I'm living in a hostile environment now, and it's so uncomfortable. Should I just cave and let them take my car? Not the jerk, and don't cave. It appears your friendly neighborhood is actually made up of a group of false friends. You didn't ask for anything unreasonable, but they wouldn't adjust for you, even though you were extremely generous with them. This neighborhood has turned toxic, and if it's possible, I suggest you find a community of more honest people. Not the jerk at all. The agreement was that they could use it if you didn't need it. Well, now you need it. If they desperately wanted to use it, they should have checked dates with you first. Also, your other neighbors? They haven't been told the truth about what's going on. I can guarantee it. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your neighbors borrow your car or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. Some people just want to use you. You gotta watch out for them.
Am I the jerk for complimenting a friend of mine, making my fiancé jealous? I, 29 male, have known my good friend Sarah, who's also 29, since we were both 7 years old. We grew up together and we were very close. Sarah is very beautiful and stylish. She's working as a bridal consultant and a stylist, and she's into the fashion industry, so her sense of style is immaculate. My fiancée, Jane, who's 27, is a lawyer. She has a more casual style, while Sarah has a more glamorous style. And I realize how both of their careers and lifestyles also affect their sense of style. For the record, I adore my fiancée. I've been with her since she was 20 and I was 22. Proposed to her a year ago, and she's the nicest and most supportive woman I've ever met. So before anyone says I might be attracted to Sarah over my fiancé, remember this. Sarah is a good friend, but we are not compatible to work as a couple at all. Her life goals do not align with mine, and her lifestyle is exhausting for me. While Jane and I, on the other hand, are compatible in every aspect. Sarah is what we'd call conventionally attractive, while Jane has a more unique kind of beauty. Sarah is the kind of woman who will make everyone turn their heads and just stare at her whenever she enters a room. She's always been like that. Jane didn't seem to mind at first, but later on she started getting bothered whenever I over-complimented Sarah, but still didn't make a big deal out of it. A friend of ours got engaged over the weekend and had this engagement party with his new fiancée. Sarah was invited and so were we. As always, once Sarah walked in, everyone turned to look at her. It was one of the best outfits she had worn and one of the best hairstyles she had had. I went to greet her and I couldn't stop complimenting her all night long because she truly outdid herself. I noticed Jane sitting alone later and I went to ask her what was wrong. She replied that I'm ridiculous for acting as if I didn't know already. Then my friend's new fiancé and my friend pulled me to the side and told me they had spotted my fiancé crying in the hallway a while ago, and she told them that she feels like she's never going to be as good and pretty as Sarah in my eyes, and she feels humiliated and jealous. My friend's fiance also told me what Sarah wore to the engagement party was not appropriate, but she wouldn't say anything because she doesn't want to stir drama, and that at some point, Sarah needs to stop trying to have all the attention to herself, constantly trying to overshadow everyone. Am I the jerk? You went to greet her and you couldn't stop complimenting her all night long because she truly outdid herself? What the heck? You couldn't stop? Yeah, you're the jerk. Even worse, OP's fiance has already commented that OP overcompliments his friend. OP, why can't you just zip it with the compliments for women that aren't your fiance, full stop? How other women look shouldn't be important enough for you to compliment them all night long, particularly in front of the woman you claim to love and want to marry. You're the jerk. Complimenting someone else, regardless of gender, shouldn't be a problem. I like getting compliments from my male friends, and I don't mind at all when my husband compliments his female friends. I feel like if OP had just said, "Hi, you look great tonight," to his friend and moved on, it wouldn't have been a problem for anyone. But it sounds like he spent the evening blatantly fawning over her, which I suspect was uncomfortable for everyone, including his friend. My dude, I can hear you salivating from over here. Did you ever consider maybe don't do that to your fiance? Sarah's beautiful, stunning, glamorous, we get it, but you can just close your mouth about it. At near 29, you're old enough to know that what you say has a purpose and has an impact. So what exactly is the purpose of you raving about Sarah's looks? Why do you do that? What do you think is the impact of doing that? Like, this is not hard to figure out, bro. You're the jerk. Exactly. What's the purpose of that? Does she not know she's attractive? Do you need to tell her? You're the jerk. I hope your fiance gets away from being someone's second choice. Nice and compatible, but not awesome. You're the jerk. No wonder your fiance feels down in the dumps about herself. Did you fawn all over her like you did your friend? Did you tell her she looked beautiful? Anything? It's also interesting you didn't notice she was upset to the point of crying until someone else had to clue you in. You were too busy obsessing over another woman. You're the jerk. You don't even realize that you're attracted to your best friend and making your fiance's self-esteem plummet. The only reason you should shower someone with compliments is if they are the center of attention and you're focused on them, like weddings where you compliment the bride and groom. You don't spend hours in front of the bride complimenting the maid of honor. My theory is that you think your friend is out of your league and you are settling. Your fiance deserves better. The fact the only reason you and Sarah aren't compatible is her lifestyle proves it. You never once said, "I don't feel attracted to her." You said she's too high maintenance, basically. Also, reading the outfit she chose, Sarah is also a massive jerk. She wanted to upstage the bride and groom. Who does that? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his fiance? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy complimented another woman, he'd need a new head.
But what if I got upset because you compliment other guys, Karen?
That would just mean you're insecure and would be a major red flag.
Don't want to fix the elevator? Meet the stinky card. While I was earning my bachelor's in chemistry, I worked for the university's hazmat department. My job involved inspecting labs, disposing of old chemicals, occasionally giving people the "you've got to be kidding me" stare, and plenty of other fun activities so our esteemed researchers can figure out science in a safe environment. Quick description of the campus. One building was a more recent construction. It has 2 wings and was shaped like the vaguely S-shaped Tetris block no one loves. The east wing was full of laboratories, 3 full stories and basement of labs, cancer research, Alzheimer's research, deadly banana fungus research. The place housed the most prestigious staff of brilliant minds trying to solve the world's problems. The west wing housed the administrative offices of the university, accountants, bookkeepers, and assorted bean counters, HR and desk jockeys, all the way up to the dean. People who, unlike their eastern counterparts, seemed to be the cause of many baffling questions like, why are our emergency expenditures still not approved? Why is there a problem with my payslip again? And why is there so much red tape? That building was connected to the rest of the campus via underground tunnels, accessed via the basement, and had 1 elevator per wing. Now, the thing is that the loading dock is in another building. So when the labs receive their orders of chemicals, they grab their cart and scoot down the tunnel to the arrivals, load up their cart, and carry it back to the lab to be safely restored, on penalty of getting the "are you kidding me" stare or a long lecture by my boss. Important point. The rules prohibit using the stairs with hazmat. Elevator only. It's safer this way. So one day the science wing's elevator breaks down. I send a request to have it fixed. At least 4 lab employees also send it. We received the response that we all should use the administrative elevator. I replied that since one of the labs is on a sort of half floor, the only way to reach it is the science wing elevator or a flight of stairs. Highlighted the risk of falling while carrying heavy boxes of chemicals in the stairs, or how there was no way to safely carry heavy gas cylinders up those stairs. They were having none of that. Use the administrative wing elevator. They will call to have the elevator fixed, but it is considered low priority. I showed the reply to my boss. He was the type of guy for who workplace safety is no laughing matter, and I was expecting him to reply with a strongly worded email and about 4 to 5 paragraphs from various workplace safety laws text. Instead, he had a strange smile. Oh, don't worry, Rum. It'll soon be a priority to them. 2 days later, my boss comes in. Rum, don't forget the biohazard truck comes tomorrow. You should collect the wastes from the labs. Oh boy, biohazard day. The day where I get to leave my office, visit every lab in the university, jokingly saying, bring out your dead, as I enter and have a chat with teachers, classmates, and various lab aides. I put on my lab coat and protective goggles. And don't forget, the elevator in the science wing is broken. You have to go through the administrative wing. Oh, now I get it. See, when the pencil pushers decided that fixing the elevator wasn't a priority, they didn't realize that I would be walking around with a cart filled with containers bearing a bright yellow biohazard logo and returning with them full of old petri dishes full of culture medium. And any biochemists or microbiologists worth their lab coat will tell you, culture medium stinks. It smells like regurgitated baby food left out in the sun. So here I am, walking in front of all those nice offices and meeting rooms, the clack, clack, clack of my cart full of biohazard announcing my arrival, and the smell of death following me. Yes, I made sure that all bags were properly sealed, but it's one of those powerful smells that just doesn't care about that. The nice lobby outside the elevator where people wait to meet the dean. Hello, sorry about the smell. The meeting room with the open door. Sorry about the noise. Can I get an update on that elevator? People walking down the hall in their office suits. Wow, they sure do seem a bit nervous seeing a guy in a lab coat driving around containers with the biohazard symbol on them. Should I tell them it's harmless unless you're severely immune compromised? Nah. Oh, and my cart has only room for 3 of those containers, plus the new ones I leave to replace the full ones. Biohazard day is about 2 to 4 trips per floor. After the second of such biohazard day, we got a message stating that the elevator will be fixed over the weekend. Am I the jerk for asking an artist to remove their signature from the art I commissioned? I found an artist I really enjoy and commissioned them recently. I want to preface this with the fact that everything went extremely smoothly so far. I'm very happy with the outcome, and the art is exactly what I pictured. Only one issue though. They left their signature on it. To be fair, it is small, off to the corner, not very noticeable. I just feel that it is unprofessional. As I commissioned them, the artwork does not belong to them anymore. I asked if they will remove it for me, and they seemed kind of annoyed and asked me if I read their terms of service. Admittedly, I skimmed, where it apparently states that they will not remove their signature. I told them what I said above, which is that I own the art now. They then told me I somehow don't, and then quoted me a huge markup price for commercial rights, and they only removed their signature for that purpose. I said I don't need commercial rights, and tried to compromise by offering to send them $5 to remove it, which is utter BS in the first place. I shouldn't have to pay extra for this. They refused, and I had essentially told the artist that if they don't remove it, then I will simply Photoshop it out myself. Considering that it's mine, I can do what I please with it. They then informed me that I will be blacklisted from commissioning them if I do so. Spoiler alert, I did it, and now I am not to mention blocked from them as well. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Do you want the author's name removed from a book when you buy it? Perfect analogy. Not perfect. OP is ignorant of what a sale might stipulate. For example, when you buy a book, that typically does not allow you to photocopy and sell copies of the book. OP might not even know that when you buy a house, you probably do not have the right to drill for water or mine for gold on the property. You typically do not even own the mineral rights for a standard property. Go figure, OP. You violated terms of service, and the artist can sue you, which would be funny, but probably a waste of time. Just stop bothering artists, OP. You can't photocopy and sell copies of artwork you buy either. All art is automatically copyrighted by the artist, and you need to pay for licensing and redistribution rights before you can photocopy and sell copies of artwork. So yes, it's a perfect analogy. I had to get permission from my artist uncle before my company could use a video of me in a promotional LinkedIn post because his painting was in the background. He didn't care at all, but it just goes to show how serious the copyright laws are to people who actually know about them. You're the jerk. A commission does not mean it's scrubbed of origin or attribution. Artwork that is sold still retains attribution to the artist. OP would erase Van Gogh's signature from Starry Night because I paid for it. No need for that ugly signature. I'm willing to bet that OP is wanting to pretend that they painted it. I see literally no other reason to be so bent out of shape and wanting what I'm sure is a tiny, discreet signature scrubbed off somewhere that was hours of time and effort on the part of the artist. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the artist? Please let us know.
Bruh.
Am I the jerk for not babysitting my sister-in-law's kids on my wedding weekend? I, 31 female, am getting married next month to my partner of 10 years, 46 male. The wedding is in a small island town. We gave everyone 12 months notice so that they could book accommodations. My sister-in-law, 43 female, lives 9 hours away. She has 7 kids between the ages of 18 months and 15 years. We do not see them often as it's difficult to be around them. Sister-in-law does not discipline or hold her kids accountable, so the majority of them behave poorly. They previously visited us and broke several of our closet bars, hanging from them, ate with their hands, didn't flush toilets, etc. My father-in-law, who lives in the same town as them, will not even go to their house for holidays, as he too cannot handle their behavior. My mother-in-law doesn't understand what the problem is, and she is forever over there babysitting and cleaning my sister-in-law's house. Today, sister-in-law texted me and asked if I would watch the 2 boys, who are 18 months and 3 years, the day before and the day of my wedding. She booked last minute and could not get a hotel room to accommodate her family of 2 adults and 7 kids. In fact, she couldn't even get a place in the town we are getting married in. She's staying over an hour away. I felt that it was absurd that she would ask this, so I did not even respond. Her kids are her responsibility. Why on earth would I want to take care of her kids on the busiest weekend of my life? We're also in a hotel for the wedding weekend, and I have my own kids. I had to make arrangements for them so I could spend my wedding night alone with my husband-to-be. Soon after, I opened the message from sister-in-law and didn't respond. My mother-in-law started lighting up my phone and calling me selfish. She further stated that she would be taking some of my sister-in-law's kids, and I should too. Mother-in-law did not book accommodation and is spending the wedding weekend in our tent trailer, which we are towing out there for her. We agreed that she alone could use it, but made it clear that we are still making payments on it and nobody else would be allowed to use it. We paid over $15,000 for it when we bought it brand new 3 years ago. We decide who's allowed in it. She told me that she didn't care. We needed to be more flexible as she needs to care for her grandkids. My fiance was at work when this all happened. I'm waiting for him to get home so we can discuss it. I acknowledge that family is not easy and mine isn't perfect either, but I think his family has some pretty insane expectations. Am I the jerk for not watching these kids and for saying they can't stay in my tent trailer because I'm afraid they will trash it? Not the jerk. It's your wedding. Being asked to look after anyone else's kids is insane. Hopefully your fiance is on the same page as you and you can talk some sense into his sister and mother. What person in their right mind asks the bride to babysit on their wedding day? The entitlement of some people. Not the jerk. But is it too late to uninvite them? Not the jerk. Expecting someone to watch your kids the day before and the literal day of their wedding is some next level masterclass jerk. If I wasn't so stunned, I'd be impressed at the levels of your sister-in-law and mother-in-law have reached. You're a Shiny member, and I'm not paid enough to care. Been a long time since I've posted here. Short story, my hotel closed back in 2020 due to lockdown, and I changed industries. My old GM calls me up and says he's in desperate need of a front desk manager, so here we are. Today's tale involves a Shiny member who very much wanted the world to know that he was a Shiny member that I dealt with last night. So I'm working the front desk by myself as one of my FDAs was on their lunch break, when all of a sudden one of our Shiny members comes down the elevator with all of his luggage and is making a beeline towards the desk. I put on my best smile, but internally there were no smiles. The guest looks absolutely infuriated, and I can just tell that this is going to be one of those situations where no matter what I do, he will not be satisfied. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I assist you?" I say to him in my customer service voice. "You can help me by telling me why I wasn't placed in my usual room." Now, he's a Shiny member, loyalty to the brand and all that, and come to find out he stays at this property a lot. Now, I'm willing to work with him because honestly I get it. Though I'm a little perturbed because I don't like being yelled at right out the gate. Talk to me like a civilized human being first at least. So I stop the task I'm doing and go over to my computer and tell the guest that I will check and see what happened. I'm looking through my computer and I see that the room was put out of order by maintenance as it needed to be repainted. Perfectly logical, right? Well, Mr. Shiny Member didn't think so. His face gets very red and he sputters a bit in absolute disbelief. "How can you do this to me? You knew I was coming. I'm a Shiny Member and I demand to speak to the manager," he bellows. Now internally I'm rolling my eyes. Of course you do, I think to myself. I calmly explain to him that I am the manager on duty and that maintenance doesn't have access to our reservation records and therefore they wouldn't know that there was anyone who had particular room preference. Now, as you can imagine, Mr. Shiny Member does not like that answer and he demanded that I call maintenance and have them stop painting the room and have him moved. Now, just for posterity's sake, it's important to point out that maintenance had started painting the room a couple days prior and was definitely not finished with it. I tried explaining to him that the room is quite literally in the middle of being painted, and he starts going on and on about how he'll have me fired, etc. Yeah, if I had $1. To sum up what I did for this guest, I offered him a new and honestly better room than he was deserving of at this point, offered him a free night and a free meal from the restaurant on site. The beast, however, would not be placated. He then proceeded to call me an idiot for not knowing ahead of time that he would be coming and making sure that his room was set aside for him. Now I'm not going to work with you at all. You want to play that game? We can, but I'll win. He then demanded to check out right then and there. I told him that I can check him out, but there will be an early departure fee. As you can imagine, he did not like this and demanded again to speak to the manager to have the fee waived. I again tell him that I am the manager on duty. Mr. Shiny Member then proceeds to tell me to buzz off and walks off. I then proceeded to check him out, charge him the fees and whatnot. And fast forward to now, I'm sitting at my desk placing my gift shop order, waiting to hear from customer care. We shall see. Update. Someone in the comments suggested that I have maintenance go up and check if the guest had hidden anything in the room, since he likes that particular room so much. I went up with maintenance, and lo and behold, there was something indeed. Wedged under the bed, we found a briefcase absolutely full with a certain type of magazines. There's no way, of course, to prove that they're his, as we've had others stay in that room since his last visit. But I mean, I think they're his. Further update, he also apparently called my GM directly. His number, he got off one of the business cards we keep up front and lost it on him, and we are now putting this jerk on our do not rent list. Am I the jerk for not helping my cousin and her boyfriend buy a car? Backstory. So I, 28 female, have a rather large family, cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. We're all very close and are usually each other's main support systems. The parent generation started what we call a family fund in the 80s where everyone pitched in however much money they can a month, and it was saved in case anyone had an emergency or was down on their luck, such as losing their job. It was there. Well, now I'm in charge of the family fund. I track who puts in what, how much is in it, and calls a vote when a questionable request is made. Now onto the title and reason for my post. My cousin, K, 20 female, who is the baby cousin, and her boyfriend, B, 20 male, have been dating for about a year and a half. Recently, B's car kind of blew up on them, so they have no car. K doesn't have a car or even a license. K sent me an email asking for a somewhat large amount of money, $2,000, to put a down payment on a car. Now, the fund has enough money, but they both work full-time, live rent-free, and don't have any medical, utility, or phone bills. All of that makes me question why they don't have money, but that's none of my business. I called a Zoom meeting as I felt the family needed to weigh in on the decision. We voted, and of course, the majority of the parents voted to give them the money. She is the baby, so they kind of gave her whatever she wanted her whole life. However, my generation, the kids' generation, my cousins, all voted against it, and there are more of us. We did, however, offer $500 to help a little, and K and B could make up the difference. Or we could lend the money, but they had to pay back the fund. This is where I may be the jerk. K was visibly upset we voted against her and she wasn't getting the full $2,000. She was also against having to pay any money back when no one else had to. Everything paid out was for legit emergencies. I'm a blunt person and was done with her sniveling and whining, so I explained what me and my cousins were thinking. I basically said that she doesn't have a license, the car won't be in her name, B isn't part of the family, and the funds aren't there to buy her boyfriend a car. I then asked what if they broke up because she would have no claim to the car. Kay started crying. My aunt, her mom, went off on me in the meeting, calling me all kinds of names, including a jerk, and my other aunt backed her up. My mom and most of my cousins say I just said it like it is, and that's why I'm in charge of the funds. Even though me and Kay have always had a decent relationship, I've always felt a sense of, I guess, anger towards her for being a spoiled, selfish jerk since we were all kids. I'm worried that may have made me more harsh than I needed to be, but I can't tell. Am I the jerk for saying what I said and not helping them with the full amount they wanted for the car? Not the jerk. The process is to put it to a vote. The vote did not go her way. You didn't decide, the family decided. Same as for everything else. You even offered a couple of compromises. Based on what you said, you weren't cruel or harsh. You gave the valid reasons the family voted against the request. No more and no less. You may think she's a spoiled, selfish jerk, but as long as you didn't say that was the reason, or run around to all the cousins and such telling them how to vote because of that, that's irrelevant. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know.
I don't know about a family fun, bruh. Sounds like it'll cause more drama than it's worth.
Family decides the cake meant for my achievement is their snack. So I know this is gonna sound petty as heck, but please hear me out. Context. So last weekend, I, 19 female, was awarded my Queen Scout certificate by Lord Baden-Powell on behalf of the Queen, which is a pretty big achievement in scouting. My grandmother came round our place on Wednesday and gave me a box of chocolates as a congratulations and a Cole's mud cake, fellow Aussies know the one, for me to share with the family to celebrate. Of course, the only 2 people out of the 5 of us living here that night were my dad and older brother, except my dad was out, so it was just me and my brother. I put the cake in the fridge for Friday when all of us would be there, and that's when I told Dad what it was for. The cake had been untouched before now, before heading to my course for the day. Anyway, I got home and a noticeably large piece was missing. Yup, my dad had taken a bit out of it to snack on. We didn't actually get to have the celebratory cake cutting. I was working a trial shift 2 hours away for a new job on Saturday after losing my old job a week ago. And on Sunday morning, my 3 siblings, 22 male, 17 female, and 11 male, headed to Mom's for Mother's Day. I came home from uni today, and a tiny quarter shape of the cake was left, and I pointed it out to Dad, who said in an offhand tone, "Yeah, sister, who's currently sick, mind you, and little brother took a few pieces from it, and the rest is going in little brother's lunchbox tomorrow morning." I didn't say anything. All I was thinking was along the lines of, and was I ever going to get any of it? That wasn't theirs to take, and that was for me to share, not for people to hack at for themselves. I guess it's selfish of me to be like that, but I'm sad that the cake my grandma got to celebrate an award I had completed under lockdown restrictions and worked my butt off for during the past 3 years was just being pigged out on and not eaten under the original intention. I'm quite sad about it. I wanted to celebrate as grandma wanted, and my family decided to ignore that and treat it like their own personal snack. Yes, this is a pattern with my family. If I bring home any snacks I bought or some sweet-tasting foods and desserts from uni, studying to be a chef, it'll be gone effective immediately. And if it's savory, healthy, or anything not dessert-like, they complain that they don't like or want it and let it sit in the fridge, even though there's usually too much for me to have, and I tell them that they can have it. My older brother even asked when I start making desserts, and I do try and hide snacks, but my dad's rule is, if it's in a public place, like a pantry or fridge, or sitting in my bedside table, it's fair game for everyone else. To clarify just in case, I know cake is meant to be eaten, and that it was meant to be shared. I'm just upset that I didn't get to be the one to share it. I was ignored, and we didn't actually get to celebrate at all. And yup, they all expect invitations to my actual badge presentation in July, where there will be more cake, a full cake for family and for me to take home, and cupcakes for guests. I'm betting the cake will be gone by Tuesday that week. Edit. Thanks everyone for the support, congratulations, and internet cake. To everyone saying I should get a secondhand fridge or a cupboard for my room, unfortunately I have neither the space in my room, shared with my sister, which is a tripping hazard in itself since there's no room to walk around, nor the money unfortunately. Also, I don't want to confuse my elderly blind cat. She likes knowing where things are. Thanks for the thought though. As for throwing it out, my grandma spent money on that, and I don't want her to waste neither food nor her money. Edit 2. I did have half of the remainder last night, and I decided to put the rest in a packed lunch for me for uni. But given that it was 2:30 a.m. and I passed out, I came down this morning and half of what I had left, a tiny sliver, was left. Had a chat to my sister, and she said that Dad had said it was cake for everyone. And then she said, "I'm sorry, I'll get you a new one." And I told her that no, it was Dad I had an issue with, and that if anyone was going to buy a new cake, it was him. Also, for everyone saying that I just got a new job and am making income, I did the trial shift on Saturday, but got an email last night saying I hadn't made the cut. So I'm actually fully unemployed, and given that my previous job underpaid me, something I'm still working out, I don't have much at all, and I'm trying to save. Can't move out yet since I don't have the economical stability either. For everyone saying, get revenge by putting peppers or laxatives in a new cake, I found those comments hilarious to read. Unfortunately, I'm not brave enough for those kinds of antics. Again, thank you everyone for your support. Edit 3. Despite my homegrown honey, I'm a beekeeper and I have hives at my stepdad's. Being tucked away, I went to put some in my sandwich for school, and most of it was missing. The honey jar even had my name on it. Low-key thinking about making a cake that says, "Congrats, OP" on it. Also, my older brother came out, saw the cake, and laughed, saying, "That cake didn't last long." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't get any of it either." And he just laughed and went, "Oh well." My elderly neighbor completely loses it over me planting clover in my lawn. We own our house, and it backs onto a big field. Our neighbors on one side are our age, in their 30s, and they planted a micro clover lawn a few years ago, and we love it. It's lush, indigenous, and great for pollinators. We decided to get one ourselves this year. When our lawn was torn up, however, the neighbors on our other side, who are over 75 years old, were livid in a way we didn't expect. I bake bread every week and always bring some over, and this last weekend, they wouldn't answer the door. I left it on the porch and found it the next morning, chucked into the dirt. I brought over a new bag of buns thinking it was a mistake, and the male neighbor answered the door and started yelling at me about how he can't believe we're doing this, that it looks heinous. Will take all year to grow, and it's going to encourage even more people to be radical in their homes. I was really taken aback. Since then, we've had the cops called on us twice for noise disturbances. We live with cats and we are very introverted. So much so, we're often both wearing headphones while doing whatever at night. Then I found out from the neighbors on his other side that he's trying to get a petition to force both of our houses to comply with standard grass. There are no city regulations on this right now, but it is a small city with a ridiculous council, so who knows what he'll manage. Was it that radical to change our lawn? It was a pricey change, but made a lot of sense to use for the environment and for our personal enjoyment. Not the jerk, and consult with a lawyer and record and document everything they do regarding this. OP. I think it helps that I'm not American, and thus litigation is highly unlikely. More likely to try to get the city to pressure me, but I'm not too worried about that. I forced the city to let me put in a community garden at the community center 2 years ago. I can force this too. I just wanted to know if I was missing something critical in my behavior that made these choices of theirs make sense. I think it's wonderful. Clover is a very lush and pretty. Plus, the positives for the environment, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Sometimes elderly people don't behave in a completely rational way. I'd suggest a fence. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their neighbor? Please let us know.
Bruh, it's 2022. Grass is so overrated.
Am I the jerk for walking out of the airport when I saw my husband's mom standing there with her luggage? I, 30 female, don't have the best relationship with my husband's mom. Since day one, she tried to make remarks and compare me to her. She then tried to get on my good side and started overly praising everything I do, and sometimes even copies me. Like one time when she literally dyed her hair purple just like mine, and when everyone pointed out how ridiculous she looked, she actually blamed me and accused me of trying to make a joke out of her. So anyways, my husband and I took 2 weeks off work to go visit some places out of the country. Tourism, in other words. Thing is, I was the one who saved up for and arranged for the trip. My husband was responsible for booking the tickets. My husband's mom wanted to come along and threw temper tantrums when I said no. She called, texted, sent people to talk me into letting her come, even threatened to call the police and make some complaint up to get us to stay if she can't come. My husband said we should just take her, but I told him he was wrong to tell her about the trip in the first place. He gave me an ultimatum, said he wouldn't go if she can't come, and I told him I'd gladly call his bluff, which made him take his words back and say, "Fine, I will tell her to stop it because we won't take her. Things got quieter, suspiciously quieter. The day of the trip came and we got to the airport at 2 p.m. My husband was walking ahead of me and was looking left and right like he was looking for someone. I asked him, but he didn't respond. He led me to the waiting area, and first thing I saw was his mom standing there with her luggage. I froze in my spot. I felt a cold wave washing over me, and I was fuming inside. She and my husband were hugging. That's why I quietly turned around and started walking towards the exit. My husband followed me while shouting at me to stop. He tried to stop me, but I told him off the harshest way possible. He tried to say I was overreacting and that his mom was there anyway, and I should let it go and not mess up the trip for us. I told him he and his mom could still go and that I was going home. I went home and sobbed into my dog's fur for several minutes. Turned out, he booked her a ticket without me even knowing. An hour later, he came home yelling and raging about how pathetic and spiteful I was to walk out and go home and ruin the trip last minute. I told him he caused this to happen. He said that I was being so hard on his mom and it's ridiculous. I refused to fight anymore, but he kept on berating me and then called my family to tell them that the trip was canceled and that it was because of me. My family said that I shouldn't have ruined it for myself and should have just sucked it up and done my best to enjoy it. Did I really overreact? I don't want to call the divorce card, but divorce. You told your boundaries, you said no. She crossed it. Your husband told you he would tell her no. He lied. He tried to pin you in a corner by not saying anything and bringing her anyways and got upset you refused to be part of his little trap. And then to berate you? He's not a good person. He needs to go. Not the jerk. Exactly. I would divorce him. He lacks a backbone and the ability to stand by your side. Time to cut your losses and move on. Jumping in to add that nowhere in OP's post does she state, "My husband is a wonderful, caring, helpful person and we love each other so much. This is so unlike him." Very telling. I agree that this is relationship ending. Unfortunately, this seems less like a lack of backbone to me and more like values his mom more than his significant other and is willing to use his backbone to sabotage significant other and lie. At the end of the day, not really better for the significant other, but from the outside, he looks actively harmful, rather than a grown-up kid who never learned to stand up to mom. Sometimes the divorce card needs to come out, and this is one of them. Only part of this I don't agree with. OP should have gone to the ticket booth, gotten her ticket changed for anywhere else, and gone to enjoy herself alone. Let the other two have their romantic time together because it sounds like he's married to her. Not the jerk. He gave you an ultimatum. No loving partner would ever put you in that position. He's a mummy's boy, and she's manipulative and toxic. You have every right to enjoy a holiday with your husband without them behaving like kids. You did the right thing. The next right thing to do is leave. He doesn't respect you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
It wouldn't be a Reddit stories video without a bunch of comments telling someone to divorce their significant other. But seriously though, don't stay with this guy.
I didn't tell my girlfriend and her family that I can speak Japanese. Now they're mad at me. I, 18 female, am Japanese descent. It's not in my surname because it's only on my mother's side, and I only have my father's surname. But I grew up at my maternal great-grandmother's and grandmother's house, who spoke almost 70% of the time in Japanese, so I can speak Japanese, and so does my whole family, including my parents. I live in another state, far from where my parents live. I've been dating Laura, 19 female, for 5 months. She is also a descendant, but unlike me, she has Asian traits. She knows I am of Japanese descent, but we never got into the conversation whether I speak it or not. She never asked, and I never commented. It's been about 2 months that I've had lunch every 2 weeks at her parents' house where she lives, both of whom are of Japanese descent, and a funny thing always happened. They would talk in Japanese, some things like, "Go make the bed. The dishes for lunch are yours," to the parts that spoke bad about me. She didn't eat everything on her plate, or strange way to dress. My girlfriend used to scold her parents, also in Japanese, and this has been the case for the last 2 months. I'm not necessarily offended, but I find it extremely funny that they think I don't know, and they talk about everything in Japanese, thinking I'm lost in the conversation. It is worth mentioning that they keep the conversation 97% of the time in Portuguese. My parents came over this weekend, and Lara's parents insisted that we go to their house so they could get to know each other. At some point, my mother had to leave the table to talk to my grandmother, and when she came back, she said in Japanese, "Your grandmother sent a kiss," and I replied, "Send one of mine to her later." I know Lara and her parents were surprised, but they didn't comment and dinner stayed that way for the rest of the night. After I dropped my parents off at the hotel, Lara asked to talk to me via video call and said that I embarrassed her parents because they didn't know that I understood and spoke in Japanese, and they talked about family things in another language, precisely because I would not understand and would not make it boring. I replied saying that, just like they badmouthed me, didn't they? But I didn't want to talk about it, and you never asked, despite knowing that a part of my family is of Japanese descent. She still stood her ground, saying that I could have said and avoided all the awkwardness at her parents' dinner. I didn't really do it on purpose. I just responded unintentionally to my mother talking in a language I'm fluent in. Am I the jerk? Extra. I don't live with Lara, so it didn't happen that I spoke in Japanese with my relatives in front of her. Yes, it was the first time she had met my parents. Not the jerk. If they're going to badmouth you within earshot, they should be embarrassed regardless. Disappointed your girlfriend isn't defending you though. Yeah, these people have some nerve to talk crap about someone that's right there. Not the jerk. It's gotta be a bilingual thing. I see this all the time, including in my own family and friends. Not the jerk. I'm white passing Latina, and I embarrass people on the regular because they speak in Spanish in front of me, assuming I don't understand. That assumption is their fault, not mine. Am I the jerk for ruining someone's day during my wedding? I, 26 female, recently just got married a few days ago. It was a traditional Punjabi wedding, and I had an absolute blast. For some context, I have 3 brothers and no sisters. In traditional Indian weddings, there are certain ceremonies where you would need your female relatives to be a part of. Since I have no sisters, my cousins stepped in. My families have always had a strained relationship with one another, always due to some petty fights that occurred years ago that some of the relatives just can't let go of. Most of the cousins don't partake in this because we're aware that it's ridiculous. I have one cousin I'll name X, who's 18 female. She's extremely nice, but unfortunately super shy and timid. She has always been like this, and most of us have just grown up being protective of her, especially since she is one of our youngest cousins. During one of the ceremonies, I insisted that my cousin be a main part of it because I know she would genuinely enjoy it, but would be too shy to volunteer herself or ask for it. One of my cousin's fiancés, 28 female, however, is quite the opposite. She constantly likes to put herself in the middle of everything, despite already being told of her given duties during the ceremony. This is the part where I may be the jerk. During one of the ceremonies, you're supposed to have one of your female relatives sit behind you on stage and basically just take care of you, fix your hair or your clothes, etc. I specifically told Cousin X that she would be the one to do this for me. However, when the day came, my cousin's fiancé was the one who took her spot. I was confused, but could not do much. After the ceremony, I found Cousin X, and she explained to me that the fiancé who took her spot had basically scolded her and yelled at her, saying that she should be the one doing it since Cousin X is still young and doesn't know anything. She then told Cousin X to go sit down with the other guests despite Cousin X's protests. Cousin X's mother, my auntie who I absolutely adore and has been a huge help with the wedding, was quite upset with this but did not want to cause a scene and just told Cousin X it's okay. When I heard this, I was furious. The fiancé took what was meant to be a special moment and made it all about herself. I set the fiancé down and told her that she had no right to do what she did, and I was extremely upset for her doing so. Apparently, she was so upset by this conversation, she refused to come for the other ceremonies the next day. I was fine with this because I generally don't like adults who throw temper tantrums, but my cousin says that I had no right to speak to his fiancé like that, and now his entire family has been constantly saying a lot of negative things about my family and the whole situation. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Man, a Desi wedding is not complete until all the relatives are mad at each other. I hope you had a really nice wedding and that Cousin X was able to help you out in other ways. What did your parents think of all of this? OP. My mother is no longer around. She passed 6 years ago, which is why my auntie has been such a huge help. She basically stepped in and took the role of my mother without me even having to ask because she understood. They even helped to pay for parts of the wedding, especially with the hall rentals, the catering, and the decorations of each ceremony. My father says that I should just apologize and get the whole thing over with, but I'm hesitant because why should I allow her to just get away with doing this? It's our Desi way to tell the kids to apologize. Doesn't matter who's right or wrong. I think you need to talk to your auntie and Cousin X and tell them what's going on. They're probably facing some blowback for this as well. I'd keep a united front. She's your second mom. OP. Update. Just got a call from my photographer. A woman called him from an unknown number and said she would pay him twice the amount of money I paid him if he deleted all of my wedding photos, and then told me that the memory card was corrupted. I honestly do not even know what is wrong with this woman and why on earth my cousin would even consider marrying her. I'm guessing your cousin and aunt will only see her true colors after marriage, and guess what? Karma does come knocking. Now the photographer should have said, okay, taken the money, and still given you the photos free of charge. Imagine her face when you showed her the wedding photos. Think in her fury she would have confessed what she did? OP, honestly, I'm just laughing at this point because the photographer and I went to primary and secondary school together. Basically, we're classmates for a decade. Huge funny moment imagining his face when she called him. Sure, I'll call the tenant. This story is about a job I just quit, and I doubt anyone there uses Reddit, so I'll share it with you. We were moving to another office, so things were chaotic. Days were really hot, so when we discovered our new office didn't have any AC, we were crushed. We tried to work there anyway, but 2 members started getting dizzy and weak, so we called our boss. He was solving some problems with our previous location, but told us to go home and not come in the next day since he'd buy a new AC unit and install it then. We were happy with the free day off, and my boss went on his way to buy the equipment. This story is about what happened when he bought it. So this new office was somewhere fancy. Our boss was a tenant in this building, and there were doctors, lawyers, dentists, all kinds of fancy people. Everyone wore a suit and tie, and since most of the tenants were rich, the building's workers were super polite, mostly because some tenants were rude to them, acted entitled, and tried to get them fired for petty reasons. Anyway, my boss called some of his friends and said, "Hey, would you help me install an AC unit in my new office? I'll pay you with some beers," and they accepted. Since it was, again, really hot, my boss and his friends went there the next morning wearing tank tops, shorts, and sandals. They were greeted by someone who worked there. I don't remember his name, but I'll call him assistant, that knew who my boss was and would follow him around, answer his questions, help him with any info about the building or the room. You know, a good human being. He was supposed to know all tenants, so everybody liked him, but I guess he wasn't in a leadership position because his workmates didn't seem to enjoy his presence. He didn't seem to care though. So assistant greeted my boss and followed him to our new room. My boss said he saw the receptionist look at them with disgust because of their clothes, but didn't think much about it. What were they supposed to do? There was only one entrance. They went upstairs and started working. Eventually, my boss noticed he forgot some tool in his car. No problem. Assistant went with him, they got it and came back. And again, the receptionist looked annoyed. My boss, who I admit wasn't the most organized, noticed he forgot to buy something. Okie dokie. Assistant, always happy to help, followed him to the entrance and waited for him to buy the tool somewhere near and came back. Again, as they got in, receptionist looked upset. For the 3rd time, my boss had to go through the reception to do something or get something he forgot. Assistant went with him, assuring him it was okay and he had every right to come and go as he pleased. But this time, receptionist had enough. When my boss got into the building, he saw receptionist come in his direction, fuming, but he didn't say anything to my boss. Instead, he went straight to the assistant and, completely ignoring my boss, said something along the lines of, "What the heck is this? Why are these people coming and going like there's no order in this building? Why don't you do anything?" Assistant just looked at him and said calmly, "I'm sorry, but they need to install their new AC today, so that tomorrow the team can work without any interruption or discomfort." "I don't care," said receptionist. "These people are annoying our staff, our guests, and our tenants. This building is no place for them. If you don't stop this mess right now, I'm gonna call the tenant and tell them you're allowing such people in his new office." I think you can guess what happened next. According to my boss, assistant's face lit up and he smiled. "Oh, really? Please do. You can talk to the tenant right now if you'd like." And he turned to my boss, who just looked at him with an innocent, "Yes, how can I help you?" face. My boss said the receptionist's face went white. He tried to say something, but he couldn't pick the words, so he just left in a hurry. My boss and the assistant laughed about it a while and went back to the office. The AC got installed, and we worked the next day with ease. What was up with that receptionist? New tenant moving in. Of course there will be folks going in and out. None of them in business clothes. Workers moving furniture in boxes, HVAC techs, electricians, network folks, etc. I've moved offices, working from both sides. I've been a mover and a network person. When I was going to be pulling cables, installing racks, installing ports, I know I'm going to be crawling into some dirty places, so no business clothes. As a new tenant, I'm still in working clothes, as I know I'm going to be directing the movers, looking at the work of the skilled trades, and moving my personal stuff too. Am I the jerk for not wanting my brother at my wedding because of a prank he did on my fiancée years ago? I, 24 male, don't have much of a relationship with my brother, 25 male. We hardly talk because he takes things too far with his pranks. One in particular, my fiancée, Allie, was really hurt over. We all went to the same high school. We had a few classes together all 4 years. In our junior year, my brother and some other people heard Allie had a huge crush on me. So what did he do? He got her number and started texting her pretending to be me. But he was able to keep her from making the connection by telling her that we can't be a couple in real life because my parents are super strict and my brother would tell on us if he saw us at school. So the relationship was only over text for 3 months. It all came to a head because she wanted to know if we could stop hiding being a couple, and he told her, yeah. He had her approach me during lunch, and obviously I was confused. Him and his stupid friends were recording from another table, laughing. The two of us found out what was going on. One of her friends thought I was in on it and called me names because she found Allie crying in the bathroom after. I felt so bad, guys. That video circulated around, so lots of people at school laughed about it, and it was just really humiliating for her. I apologized to her for what happened and swore it was all my brother. Our senior year, we only had one class together, but I tried talking to her more. Then, coincidentally, in our first year at community college, we ended up in the same math class. We became study buddies, and that's where I caught feelings for her. We started going out. Now, after 5 years together, I asked her to marry me. One thing we decided is for sure neither of us want him at our wedding. I know we ended up together, but it was still something deeply hurtful to her because she was still made fun of about it even in our last year of high school. Just the fact that he did this to someone random he didn't even know just to mess with me knowing she had a crush. His pranks haven't changed anyways. He still goes too far with them and he's not even sorry about what he did to her. Mostly my parents are the ones advocating for him to come since he's my only brother and he wants to be there. He keeps saying Allie needs to stop being so sensitive about it because a wedding is a big deal and the whole family should be there celebrating with us. Allie feels bad, but she really doesn't want him there, and I don't either, but it's causing this stupid conflict now. We're getting married really soon. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Tell him he needs to stop being so sensitive about not being invited, and that due to past history and his current lack of empathy or remorse, he will not be invited at all. Ensure that your parents are aware that there will be someone there to escort him out if he shows up uninvited. Dumb customer calling restaurant. I work in a pretty small restaurant. We're very busy with walk-ins and we have a lot of DoorDash and those app orders. For some backstory, we have some house sauces that we have to make and fill in hundreds of cups ourselves daily. Filling the cups takes me legit 3 hours as we have several different options and I'm also dealing with the register and customers in between, etc. Those sauces are gone in a heartbeat because they are really delicious and everyone loves them. Every meal comes with one sauce. If you want extra sauce, they're $1 each. They're pretty big cups. And if someone wants just one extra sauce, I more often than not give them for free. The times I don't are the times we have very little batch left, and I know I'll need it for the actual orders and I don't have time to refill, only because I gave out for free. But when you want 5 extra sauces, well, then you have to pay. I can't just give out that many extra sauces because 1, my boss would not be happy about it, and 2, it's not reasonable since so many ask for several extra sauces for free, especially the app orders. I'd end up giving out 100 extra sauces on my shift only. The entitled moron calls in yesterday, and oh goodness, she enraged me. Moron.
Hi, how are you? My name is Moron, and I just placed an order through DoorDash. Did you get it?
Me. Yes, I did.
Actually, I forgot to add sauces, and we love sauces. Can you please put in a couple of every sauce you have?
How many do you want?
6 would be great.
Me. Okay, no problem. We actually have this thing on DoorDash where I can add whatever extra you want and they'll charge you.
Charge me? You can't just give me the sauces? I always order and then call the restaurant and they send me free sauces. This is our first time ordering with you.
Me, sarcastically. Oh, but I thought you said that you just forgot to add the sauces, so you didn't forget, because that's what you said? Karen, biggest sigh and attitude.
How much are the extra sauces?
Me, $1 each.
Okay, I guess then just add 1. I mean, usually we just call and get the sauces for free, but it's okay.
Me, I'm just very confused because you called me and say that you forgot adding sauces, and now that you have the option, you're saying that you didn't forget, but just wanted to call to get free sauces.
I always do that and never had any problems. This is like I said, our first time ordering from you guys.
Honestly, I'm done with customers at this point. Just be upfront and say you want sauces for free. I'd respect that much more. And I don't give a hoot if it's your first time, because it's my 20th time today having people either call or write in the orders, please add 4 extra sauces. Stop being so cheap and add whatever extra you want when you order. When I order delivery myself, I go and add exactly what I want and would never dream of calling and begging for free stuff. Another customer had the audacity to write in the notes on their DoorDash order,
The last couple of times I've asked for extra sauces and I never get it. I want 3 extra sauces and don't even bother making my order if you don't include the extra sauces.
I immediately canceled the order. Am I being unreasonable? Refuse to remove the carpenter bees? I'll tear up your lawn. A few years ago, I lived in a scummy apartment complex when my first kid was born. Everything was fine for the first few months. Then it just got terrible. Their gate broke, so everyone treated us as a free parking lot for the bus. They wouldn't tow anyone. The ceiling started dipping. They did nothing, and our door frames broke from the pressure. Then the infestation happened. We had bees, we had rodents, and then they'd send out maintenance and they'd come back. The problem was our neighbors adjacent to us were awful, and their trash attracted gnats. Carpenter bees swarmed my front door and infested the stairs so bad you couldn't walk in a 5-foot radius of it or our front door. We lived in an apartment building on a hill, so there were 2 bottom floors dependent upon which side you were on. I was on the absolute bottom floor where you would go down from the parking area at the top of the hill, 2nd floor ground level. So to avoid the bees, I'd have to walk down the steep hill with my newborn's car seat up on my chest. We asked them to send an exterminator for months. They didn't. With the newborn and falling down the hill, we decided enough was enough, and we wanted out of our lease. We found a place and said, if the carpenter bees are not removed, I'll have to drive the truck onto the field around this steep hill. I guess they thought I was playing, but they said, you do what you gotta do. I made it clear the friends that were helping me move were allergic to bees, so I wasn't putting them at risk, period. On the day of the move, it was especially muddy from having rained a few days before, but it was a hot and sunny day. Sure enough, the bees were swarming. So I did what I said I would do. I moved the truck onto the muddy field to pack up my 1st floor apartment. Now, because of the angle of the hill, I wasn't able to come in from the field. I had to come from the backside, floor 2, and drive down. So it took 15 minutes of sharp turning, but I did it. Going down, a couple tires got stuck in the mud, so I rapidly accelerated while moving the steering wheel. Now, I could have decided to be more strategic, but I was upset. I made it make a huge mess. I tore up the front side and the back going up. Their maintenance was upset. My neighbors backed me up that they really brought it upon themselves. Wouldn't you know it, within 30 minutes, they put up flyers on doors that they were doing something about the bees, but it would be the next day after I needed to move out. The aftermath. I moved out completely and left my apartment nice so they couldn't take my deposit off on the apartment as no damage was personally done to the apartment. That money was a credit to be used, or not because we broke our lease quickly. The landscape was a muddy disaster, so they had to pay $3,500 for it. They sent me a bill, and I said I was not paying because the conditions were atrocious to move out and potentially hazardous to someone's life. In my state, that's enough to quantify dismissal here. So they sent it to the credit bureaus, but I provided all the written notices, my neighbors' video statements, and showed there was literally no other alternative. I showed they had months to fix the problem, but chose to conveniently schedule to fix it the next day after my keys were due to be turned in. It was quickly dropped from my credit report, and they were deemed legally liable for their own damages. I never paid a dime, but I seriously ruined their lawn. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.